Okay, guys. So before you understand or work with Paystack or Flutterwave, right, to accept payments in your flutterflow app, you have to understand API integration, right? How to work with APIs, and that's something a lot of no-code developers working with Flutterflow don't know how to do. Now, API is a way for you to make your Flutterflow app talk to external apps. You can talk to ChatGPT. You can do so many things, right? Now, if you want to get the big picture here, all you are doing is you're going to make your app, right? Talk to Paystack or Flutterwave. You're going to tell Paystack or Flutterwave, oh, my user or my customer wants to pay me X amount of money, maybe 20,000 naira or something, right? And then Paystack will say, okay, here's a link to give your customer. You give that link to your customer pays or does not pay, and Paystack sends you information and says, hey, this payment was successful, or hey, this payment was not successful, and then you can do whatever you want to do in your app. That's how it works. So there's another video on API tutorials. You can watch it, check the link below, or you can look for I might link it somewhere in the video, and you can go and watch and learn more about API tutorials, or how to work with APIs. Until then, let's go into the next section. So quickly, before I show you, talk about this next section, and I'll tell you what you're seeing on my screen, why do we work with APIs? Now, you work with APIs because you need to connect to other platforms that can give you information or data that you currently do not have access to. For example, there is a website for crime, right? Talking about crime reporting, the crimes that are happening in a location at a particular period of time. And you can actually connect to that website and find out, information about, who has a criminal activity, things like this, right? These are things that on your own, if you were to gather the resources to gather information about things like this, or even, for example, Google Maps, if you had to take out the resources and actually check out every single location in the world, just like the way Google has done it, you would spend a lot, and it will not even make sense trying to build your platform because you're going to spend millions and millions. But a company has already done that. Compile the data. Now you can access it via APIs. You can talk to it and they talk back to you. Or you want a feature that you can't easily build, right? But you can connect to another platform that has built it, because it's going to take you so much time to do it. Imagine ChatGPT trying to build your own AI system. That will take a lot of money, but you can connect ChatGPT and have it inside your app. That's it. Now, this particular thing we're seeing on my screen right now is called a documentation. Every single API has it. An API, when you're working with APIs, is a business. People make money from APIs. So because it's a business, they are going to tell you, the developer, how to install it safely in your app. Everything you need to know. The only issue is, as a no-code developer, looking at your screen, you see some code, you are scared. Right? So let me break it down for you. But first things you need to know is everything you need is there on the screen. They literally tell you everything, and you need to know. If you take your time and read it, you'll easily be able to understand what you're seeing on your screen. Now, one of the easiest things you can also do is, if you are looking at it, you want to read the documentation so you can understand how to install the API, because you can install others. You can copy all the text you're seeing on your screen, and you can copy it and then go to somewhere like ChatGPT and paste the information about that API. And then once you paste the information, you can say, please, can you explain this API to me? Can you tell me why do I need to do this particular thing? Or why do I need to do that? What does this one mean? What does that one mean? You can talk about it, but this video is also going to help you, right? This is just so you can digest a very big or large documentation script. Now, this is Flutterwave's documentation. This is Paystack's documentation. Just like any other application in the entire world that you want to connect an API to, you can easily just go online and say, for example, Paystack API. All right. Once you click the API documentation, you've taken to the first link. You can click on it and you'll be able to read more information about that platform you want to integrate. Now let's get on to the next thing. Now, all of them always have a search button where you can search different kind of features that you want. For example, we want to accept a payment. So I think I'm going to use a very simple keyword like accept payment. All right. Now, from there, you can just try and look at more information about it. But the typical way that you can find accept payment, or that section that you're looking for to accept payment, is called initialize transaction, right? For Flutterwave, you can just come and type accept in the search bar. How do I accept payment? So just come here. It's very simple. Accept payments. All right. So we'll look for something that looks close to what we are looking for. Let me go to API documentation. We see payment methods. So we can click there and we see some information about the different type of payment method that they accept, right? And we can also see this section where we can click and choose what we want. But for now, we can see that, there is even more information here. Go to overview And in the overview section, we can see the type of payments that Flutterwave can allow you to have, these different methods you can actually work with their system. And if you take your time and read it, which is what you need, you can actually copy and go to ChatGPT, like I said. But if you take your time and read it, you'll notice that the most important sections are Flutterwave standard, right? And direct charge. Now, what does this mean? Because if you read this Flutterwave inline, it's actually a JavaScript library. Only majorly when you're working with websites. This is not a website you're building an application, so you can't actually work with this. Now, HTML checkout still for websites, so you can't really work with it. But you can work with Flutterwave standard and direct charge. Now, for Flutterwave standard, this is an API. Direct charge is an API, but you need to build your own UI. So you can read more information. You can click on them. Keep going deep. Just take your time and read. Be patient. All right. So that's how you read APIs. Now, in the next video, I'm going to break down the documentation for you. Okay, so now we understand documentation a bit and we're no longer scared. Let me explain how APIs work, right? Now, if you've ever browsed online before, you have interacted with the same technology that powers APIs. And I'm not going to use any technical language on your own. You can do more research. But what happens when you actually go online and you go to your web browser and type a particular URL, for example, Instagram.com? What happens is that the same way if you give me your address, your home address, maybe 476 Lower Street, and I start asking people, okay, where is this person located? And they start telling me, okay, that's where your house is, that's where your house is. And until I find your house, is the same way the internet would work in a very simplified manner. That's me explaining to you. So once you type the address here, there are different protocols that are going to direct you to where that particular website is hosted on a server. And then you now display it on your device. Very simple, right? The same thing with APIs. So basically, APIs are just hosted online too. They are just the same way your websites are hosted. They are hosted on the servers. And when you now work with their URL, right? Because just the same way, the way your app talks to other apps is on the internet, right? When you now use their URL, just like you're browsing online, you will now be able to now search for the particular location where this particular API or the resource is hosted. So for example, I can actually copy this link. So this is a link, right? This is like browsing on internet. Every single API I'm going to work with that has to do with HTTP, they call it HTTP request, is going to have a link that they're going to give you all the time. All right, so this is it here. So copy here. So let's check what happens when I put in this link here. Okay. So what I'm seeing on my screen right now is status false, no authorization header found. Now we know that we can actually access APIs online just like we access a website, right? But what is authorization header? What does that mean? Now we just try to access in the previous section, we just try to access the section, we went to Paystack's link to try and access their API, right? It's telling us no authorization header was found. What does this mean? Now, let's explain something quickly before we actually go into that topic. Now, if you go to flutterflow and you click on add a new API call, right? Or create a new API call from here, new API call. Now, no matter, depending on the way you do it, you're going to see a section called method type. Now, what is method type? Remember, I told you that API calls is how you can make your app, your Flutterflow app, talk to other apps. There are 5 ways you can talk to other apps. You can search for about these different methods, right? But let me explain it quickly. So get means all you want to do from that app, or that other server, whatever, or database is that you just want to get information from them. Post means you want to create something new in their platform. If you notice, every single time a user makes a payment in your app, if you go to Paystack, your dashboard, you're still going to see evidences of those payments recorded there, right? Because you are the one that actually created that new record based on you through the API. Delete means you want to delete something from their platform, the other platform, right? Put patch means to edit, but one is more dangerous than the other. Put means if you have a list of data, right? Maybe like 3 data called Benjamin, John, 3 names, Benjamin, John, and Peter. The moment you use a put call, it's going to erase all the names you have there, and you are going to be required to put new names there. But if you use patch, you can use patch to only edit one. Maybe you just want to change Benjamin's name or on one of the other names, I can't remember. That's how it works. So that's put. Put is more dangerous than patch. Now, these 5 methods, you don't have to put them in your head. typically, if you go, for example, now I want to check how to initialize transactions, that's how to make a payment. You see that they're telling us that it's a post call. So they're already giving us information about what type of call or API this method we're going to use here. So it's very simple. They're always going to tell you, you don't need to memorize that. Now, that's where we now go into authentication, where they said no authorization header was found. Now, if you think about this, the fact that you can actually create something new in somebody else's server, or the database, right, or edit something or delete something, or you can access like information like a crime database, the entire public should not have access to it. Now, not all APIs will do this. There are some that are free for everybody to use, but not everybody should have access to these kind of things inside of their own app. Not everybody. So typically, some APIs are going to authenticate it. They're only going to allow. They're trying to make sure that only the right people can actually have access to their API. So it's a way of protecting themselves. Also, because some people, some APIs, they actually they use it to make money, right? So they want you to pay for it. So they will have to manage to make sure that you have an account with them. So you can be paying through the account, right? So they can monitor your usage of it. And before they can give you a key. So you're paying them, they'll give you a key, or they'll give you a password that shows that you actually have access to that API. Very simple, right? Now, so like I said, not everyone will do this, but even Paystack, you think Paystack is free, but it's not. Paystack should charge you for every transaction that comes through their platform. They make money from you. So you can read more about that on their website. It's still a business. All right. So there's more information about authentication here, and you see something. Every single API, the documentation always has information about authentication. If you click on Flutterwave, right? So I'm trying to reload Flutterwave. If you click on Flutterwave and I go to main menu, all right, main menu. Okay, so yeah, I just went to their quick start. See, they have something called authentication. I don't know why I struggled to get that earlier. So authentication. So if you click on it, you'll see more information about how their own works. How you can actually get access to your keys. They're going to tell you, see, they're telling you, oh, create a Flutterwave account, things like that. They're giving you all the information that you need to work with, even like as a beginner, right? So you can read these things and get this. So it's the same thing with Paystack too. Now in Paystack, they're telling us that, oh, the key, that's the password they're going to give you. You can actually get it from the dashboard. So if you click there, they're going to take you to your dashboard. You'll be able to actually access your keys, right? Very, very simple. So before I actually get to my own dashboard, all I'm just trying to tell you is this, right? This is a way to make sure that not everybody has access to their platform. So now I want you to remember that this is the same thing with how Flutterwave work too. But now they've taken me down to this section where I have two modes. I have a live mode and a test mode. Now a live mode, this is when I want to go live. I actually want to start receiving payments from people all around the world, real payment. A test mode is when I just want to test the API. I want to make sure it's working. So they'll give me this like I can generate a new one so I can actually show the keyboard. I'm not going to show it. But when you click on the eye open, right, they'll show you your password, and this is what you're going to work with, this test secret key. You can copy it and save it. And in the next step, I'll show you how we're going to work with it, right? Like I said, this is your password, right? This is where it is in Paystack. Flutterwave have their section. It's the same thing. They're going to direct you down to it. All right. Remember, don't use this key when you're going live. This is just to test it. So click on the eye open and copy it. Okay, guys. So we've learned about authentication a bit, right? And it's time for us to actually practice what we've learned so far in Flutterflow. Now, let me go back to the API section, and I was already working on something earlier, but let's just try and clear it off. So basically, when in Flutterflow, when you click on add an API call, you have two types that you can add. You can add an API group, an API call. Typically, you might always want to go for the group. Why? Because different APIs you want to work would give you different kind of features, right? And each feature is one API call. This is a post call. This is a get call. That there are different kind of API calls to work with, and they also feature different endpoints or different URLs to interact with that particular feature or that particular information you want to interact with on their servers. So you can see this one is transaction slash initialize. This one to verify transaction is, transaction slash verify slash reference. And it keeps going on and on. It's always going to be different. First transaction is transaction slash ID. It's always going to be different. So if you're always going to come and be creating a new API call, adding, all the details again and again, it's not really the best idea to do that. So Flutterflow has already given an opportunity to create an API group where you can just add a group and group all your API calls inside that group. All the API calls are similar, right? And this is where we can group all our Paystack API calls in. Now, quickly, right? Let's look at this particular URL here. We have api.paystack.co. Now, typically in API, when you're working with APIs, you're always going to see a part of the link that is very, very common, right? The most common version of that link. You're going to keep saying it again and again and again in all the other endpoints. So you can see api.paystack.co, api.paystack.co. I can see, and you see up here too, they don't even add the api.paystack.co. They just add the version, the section of the link that is meant to interact with that particular feature. All right. So if you understand where I'm going with this, let me explain. So basically what you need to do is, if you're working with an API group, you need to copy the section of the link that we spoke about earlier, just like you're browsing the internet, that is the most common, and paste it in the API base URL, right? I'll call this Paystack payment. So once you paste it here, the next thing we're going to need is a header. All right. Remember, we talked about authorization, showing showing Paystack that we are meant to, to be here. We're meant to actually access their servers. That is what this is all about, right? So let's click on header. Now, see, they're already giving us the answer here, or what to do. So remember, I told you down here, if you let's look down here first. You can see something called curl. Then this is URL. So the URL is what we've pasted here, right? Then H authorization, H content type, D data. Now, what does this mean? H means header. H means header, right? And D means body. That's what it means. I know that can be a lot. Remember, you can always copy and go to ChatGPT and it can explain everything to you. You can always copy an API call and say, what part of this is the header? What part of this is the body? Just in case you are not sure when you're starting out, right? But once you are able to identify which part of it is the header, which part of it is the body, right? Which is quite simple. Here we know that these two are the header, right? And it's what we're doing is what this header is doing is it's passing information about this API call, which is important for this particular API call. So for example, authorization is telling the servers that, oh yes, this person does have access, because what we're seeing is authorization. That's the first thing. Then bearer. What is bearer? Bearer is a way of telling the servers that what is coming next after it is the API key. That's what bearer does. It's telling that, oh, what is coming after me is the API key. That's what it does, right? So it's something that you're going to have to just memorize and work with and understand over time as you keep working with it. Then content type is not always necessary to add a content type, not always at all, but basically what it does is it tells it communicates that the information you are working with is in JSON. And I will explain what JSON is shortly, right? Because this is also very, very important for us to understand JSON if you are going to work with API calls. But let's just focus on the header first. So for this header, I'm going to copy this section here, authorization bearer, your secret key. All right. And then I'm also going to copy the content type or application or JSON. Awesome. Good. So I'm going to add the group now, and I've saved it. Now, there's something I want to teach you quickly. When you're working with API calls, right, you can pass things dynamically. Now, let me explain what that means. So if my secret key was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10. Now, one of the issues with this type of API call is that if someone had access to our code, they can easily be able to steal our API key. And why would you not want someone to steal your API key? Because if somebody gets access to your API key, your Paystack account is at risk because they could possibly siphon funds or get access to some information that they are not meant to get access to, because that secret key will be telling Paystack that they are meant to have access to their platform, and they are meant to not only have access to Paystack's platform, they are also meant to have access to your own account, right? Which you have sensitive customer data, right? Money. There are so many things that you have access to with this API key. For example, there is even a section to even transfer, right? So let's say transfers. You can actually initiate a transaction or a transfer with your secret key. So you need to be very careful about this. You need to be very, very careful. Now, there are ways to actually secure this thing. Paystack has information about that. In fact, I think on default, before anyone can transfer, you have to have an OTP. So don't be scared about that. But if you disable it, that's very, very scary. Now, let me just give you what is very, very simple hack, right? And that hack is not to leave your secret key open. What you do now, you obviously have to send your secret key here, but we want to make it dynamic in a way that we can put our secret key somewhere else, maybe on our database, somewhere that is secure, somewhere that we can hide it, and then we can always make sure that it still shows here. How do we do that? What you do is you put these two brackets, right? This is how you can send dynamic information that does not have to be static here. What does that mean? It means that we are just going to write something like this, a key, right? So we'll call this will be like a reference name, right? A dynamic name. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to something called group variables. Anytime you see variables in your flutterflow app, variables means anything that is dynamic information, any key, any value that holds data that is dynamic, data that changes, right? For example, most times in your flutterflow app, you might have a place. And don't worry, I'm going to fix this. It's telling me it's misconfigured because it's this API key here is supposed to be dynamic, and I've not added a dynamic variable yet. But let me try and explain. So let's say we have an app, right? And I'm trying to see what I might use, but let me maybe open my own Notes app. Let's see. So basically, if I built this Notes app in Flutterflow, I would have that this top section here, Paystack and Flutterwave YouTube. This is why I plan my YouTube video, right? Paystack and Flutterwave YouTube should have a dynamic value, right? Because what I will have here will be, this will be the title of whatever their note is. If I was creating a note app like this. So basically, I'll have to create in a way that the text that will be here would always display whatever the user is typing at that moment. I'm sure you're getting the picture. Sometimes it might be a username. You might put a place or a space in your app where a username is going to show, right? And usernames will change, right? Maybe a user is called Benjamin, another user is called Emeka. There are different names that would come up. You will need to make sure that that name of that user is represented on your app. That is dynamic content, right? So typically you send information from the database or from an app state. These are things that you should know as a Flutterflow dev. If you don't, you can comment down below and I'll explain more to you, or at least try to help you out. So yeah, anytime you see variables, that's what it means. It means dynamic content. So what I've done here is I've told this bearer and this secret key section that I want to send this API key as a dynamic variable, right? So the next thing I have to do is I have to copy the same name that I have here, right? Paste it here, then string, boom. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating what you call a group variable. And when you're working with an API group, it's very important to create group variables like this. And group variables like this means that the entire API calls under this group, under this file, would also have access to this group variable, because all of them will always need to show that, they have an API key that authorizes them to perform the action, right? Or that you have access to perform the action. So all of them will have access to this same API key that will be sent to this authorization bearer. I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't, comment down below and I will try and help you out. Okay, so let me click on save. And then the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to start adding all the calls that we need. Now this has secured us, right? So the first call that we'll need very simply, right, is initialize transaction. Okay. So what I'll do is I'm just going to copy this section of, you see this section here? I'm just going to copy it and I'm going to paste it over here. All right, good. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the API, the call name. This is called initialize. Initialize, or you can call it anything you want. Transaction. All right. Now it's time to check any other thing that we need to send. Now we don't need to add this authorization on bearer, authorization, or content type, because we've added it to this top section. All of them have access to what we put up here in the top section, as you can see here. Now the only thing we need to do is the body. Now remember, post calls, it means you are creating something new, and when you are creating something new, you need to send the data or the information that you are creating to that other platform, to that other to their database. You need to tell them what you want to create. And with Paystack, you are creating a payment, all right? So that they can do something for you. So they can create a link that your users will now make sure they pay that exact money you specified in your API call. And the way you typically send data over the internet and receive data back, because basically you're sending information that, I want to create this payment for customer@email.com with this amount, 20,000 naira. All right. Now, once it's done, Paystack will send you information back. And you notice it's the same format. The same format. This is called JSON. And what is JSON? You can do your own research on what JSON is. But JSON, the simplest way to say it is, it's one of the most organized way to send information over the internet in a way that humans and computers will easily understand it. If I ask you to write information about a particular user, if I ask 5 of you watching this video right now to write information about me and how I talk or how I behave or how I speak, different characteristics about me, each and every one of you are going to have different things to say about me. That's the funny thing. You're going to write it in different ways. And the computer doesn't have so much time to try and start trying to organize your text. It will make it slow in processing data. It will make it also miss out on important sections where data was stored, things like that. And even other human beings can get tired of trying to read your lengthy text. So JSON is a way of organizing large amount of data, because there's a lot of data you can store with JSON, but in a very structured and organized way that when you tell your computer, this is where I expect this data to be in, it is always going to find that data there, which is very important. You always need to be precise when you're building computer programs so that you don't make mistakes. And I'm sure you have noticed when you build your logic in a way that is not logical, you find that your app is not doing exactly what you wanted it to do. All right. So basically, what we need to do right now, we need to just copy this JSON this body, the body, exactly what we're seeing here. Now you can see if you click on these body parameters, you see more information you can actually send that you're not seeing here. This is a simple example. This one here is a simple example here, but there's more information you can actually send here, and we'll get back to that later, because all this information here is not that important. This is exactly what you need to create a payment, but these are the most important fields. If I close this up, the most important fields are, the amount and an email. You must provide an email address for the customer, and you must provide an amount, right? After you provide these two things, the other things are just optional, right? You can provide a callback URL and you can read what they are all for. Read your documentation, please. So let's just use this basic one first and create a payment. So I'm going to copy from here. And I'm going to, remember, it's a post call. So let us click on post. Body would, so for the body, we'll select JSON, which is always going to, most times you're going to be working with JSON. Most times. So we'll just paste it here. Good. Format. So click on format to make sure that you have the right JSON structure. And if you don't, you can copy everything and paste it in ChatGPT and say, please help me format to JSON. And it's going to format it for you. But let's say I wanted to add more information from their parameter, just in case you want to. For example, callback URL. All I need to do is come over here and I can. So now let me give you one of the rules. The last section of your JSON, of the information section in your JSON field, right, should not have a comma, right? If not, you have an error. You have an error when you format it. So they should always be empty like that, right? But then the section or the field that is the name of that part of Okay, let's give, for example, now, email is the name of the user's email, right? We're telling the server that, oh, or they are, or we're telling them, or we're telling Paystack that this is the customer's email. So this is the name of that particular field, email. So it has to be in quotation marks, right? And then, the name or the actual value should also be in quotation mark. And for example, if I have callback URL here too, the way I'm going to write it is this, like this. Sorry, made a mistake. Let me just paste what I copied. Callback URL. And then all I have to do is open bracket like this. And I have to also add a comma at the end of the day like that. Then I can write whatever I want in between, and this will be correct format. So you can keep adding things like that, following this simple rule, and you'll be good to go. All right. So once you have done this, the next thing is to make this dynamic. But before we make it dynamic, let's test if this API call is going to work, right? Okay, guys. So if you check the response section, you see that that API key that I added before, right, over here is also showing here as a variable. Now, this section in your API call section is how you can add the information that you want to send in your variables, right? Any information that you need to send to the API call. So we're going to play around with it a bit. So don't worry, just follow me. What I did was I copied my API key from the secret key from Paystack, and I came over here to paste it here, right? That's all you just need to do to test it out. Now, I have not touched anything else. Let's just go and test the API call and see whether it works. Boom. So we have a success code, and typically you can come over here and you can check an example of how it should look like when it's successful. So this is when it's successful. This is how it looks. So if it was not successful, let me show you an example of if it was not successful. Now, let's say I make a mistake and I do not send an email, which is an unnecessary field, right? And let's say I just test the API call. It's going to give me an error. So status false, email address is required. So you see, you must send an email address. It's a must. All right. So let's just try and remove that mistake. You must send an API, you must send an email address for this to work. All right. Now that's an example of a failed API call. Now, rarely are you going to see this API fail, this particular call fail, because you are always creating is like I'm not it does not happen to me, right? So rarely are you going to see it fail, but if you do not send the right parameters, you might encounter an error. Okay. Now the second thing that we need to focus on is that not all of our customers are going to have customer@email.com. Not all our customers are going to always want to send 20,000 naira. You might want them to pay 150K, 200K, depending on the kind of product you're selling also. All right. So we need to make this dynamic, just the same way we did for this API key section. We need to make it dynamic. So what do? I'm sure you can see something that looks like a ray of hope, which is the variables, but after the body. All right. So you click on variables. This is where we can now set the dynamic sections for this, whatever we have here. Now, we don't need special names like we had for this API key section. We don't need those kind of names. It can be anything you want, right? I can call this email 101, for example. It doesn't need to be the same name as what we see there. The only rule that we have here is this section here, right, where we had this customer email at email.com, we'll delete it, and we are going to put this, whatever we have here that's supposed to represent the email, over here. And then for this amount, we are going to go to variables here and say we can call it anything we want, but I'm going to call it amount. It's going to be a string. Then I'm going to bring it here. Awesome. Format, save. Good. So now we have a dynamic email and amount. So what do? We come over here and we can actually test out how, like, different kind of emails based on this field, because it's dynamic. So we can say ggg whatever, right, at mail.com. So this is the email of the person that's going to be sending the money, and amount can be whatever we want. whatever we want. So we can say test API call, and boom, we have an API, call here with a link that we can use to make customers pay. Now let's test this link now. So I'm going to copy this and take it to my browser and paste this here, delete that, and delete all of this, and check it out. So basically, that link is meant to take your users to a section where they can actually pay you. So this is a test version. As you can see, this is 675,879 naira. Good. So we're saying success, and once they pay, your last transaction was declined due to insufficient fund in your bank account. I don't know why that did like that. It's supposed to be successful. Let's see. Okay, maybe it's just in test mode, maybe because of the amount that is here. But let's see. Transfer. Okay, I've sent the money. It should work. So yeah, while this is working, I'm sure you'll get the idea, or you get the picture of what is happening right now. Good. So we can come back to this. Now, one other thing about API calls that we should know is when you send a request, right, to whatever platform you're trying to work with, they are always going to give you a return value back. Sometimes it can be that, oh, the status is true, the API call worked, right? And they will send you some value that you need. For example, this link is very important to us. Our users must have access to it to pay us, right? Or sometimes it might be, oh, something did not work as expected, so that you can do something in your app or not do something in your app, right? But in Paystack right now, the most important things to us are the status, the reference, and the authorization URL. So you have to determine what's important to you. All right. Now, let me show you why I think the status is very important. So for example, let's say I omit the email and I just try and test the API call alone. It should give us an error, status false. So what I'm going to do to pick this field here to tell Flutterflow that I only want this field, because sometimes they'll give you so much information that you don't need. Some other API calls might be longer than this. This is very short. That's why it's easy, but some will be longer than this. Or let's say that I did not write the email well. I just wrote that. Let's see, test API call. Status false, invalid email address passed. Now you might also want to copy this too, so that you might show your user a message that, oh, invalid email address, or this or that, whatever you want to add. You can just use it to display to your user as a useful, helpful message. You passed the wrong email, or you did this or you did that, etc. Right? So let me show you how we can tell Flutterflow that we want this field. So what you just need to do is go to the add JSON part, click on it, and now we just told Flutterflow that we need information from this status field, because if this status is ever equals to false, then we know that this API call did not work. So we'll call this status. All right, can call it status. So let's check if it is real. If it works, mail.com. So we'll test API call. So let's see. So you see, status changes to true if the API call actually works. The next thing we need is a link, authorization URL. So we're going to click on add JSON part, which is this. Then you can give it a name. If you don't give it a name, and you will not be able to save it. See, if I try and save it, it will give me, say, name cannot be empty. So you are giving it your own unique name. All right. Now, on your own, I would suggest that you can study the topic JSON parts, how you find a particular JSON part in a JSON list. All right. And to just give you a clue, if you look at Flutterflow here, there's something called $.status. If I remove the S there, you see null, because there is no STATU in this line here. There is nothing like that. But if I remove this and I write data, you see it changes. It's collecting information from this data field and showing me everything that's inside the data field. If I go over to reference, all right, you see that it's going to bring, I think I might have spelled it wrong. REFERENCE. I don't know why it's not bringing out the reference. Let me see. Let me copy from here. So that okay is data dot. Okay, I made a mistake. It's my fault. Sorry. So this is what I'm talking about. Data dot reference. So yeah, so on your own you can try. So you can see I've accessed the information here. So JSON paths are the special method I was telling you about, how computer programs can easily know, even if this list was as long as a whole textbook, this computer system will be able to know exactly where any kind of data you've stored there is, exactly where, because of JSON paths, right? But there's a specific way in which it is organized. For example, reference is inside the data section here, right? So the way you refer to reference is data dot reference. And there's other there are other things here, but on your own, go and read on JSON paths so you can understand it more. But Flutterflow has already done simplified everything for you. You don't need to go and read yourself right now. Once you click on a path that you want, Flutterflow automatically tells the computer system right now that this is exactly what you want to get from the JSON path, and it's always going to work on 100% of the time, because this is the structure that you're going to get back from the API call. I hope that makes sense. Now, let us go back to where we were working before. And that was, let's see, we wanted to get access to the status, right? So we'll say status, all right, which is true right now. Then URL, we just call this payment link. So this is the payment link. I made a mistake with spelling. Then the next thing we need is the reference, and I'll tell you why we need the reference. If you read the documentation, you understand this is still pending. I think it's just because of the price that we put. Most times when you put balances that are above 50,000 naira in the test section, it messes up. And that's because so people don't want other people to fool other people that, oh, they received a payment of this amount of money when it was a test version. All right. So let me just close off that. Now let me go back to this section here, and we'll click on reference, add JSON path. Now in Flutterflow, you're not allowed to write the word reference for reasons, if, for example, now, one of the major reasons why you cannot add the word reference is because it is a keyword in that, right? Used for different things. When I talk about like in programming here, is actually a keyword. It's used for things in the background by Flutterflow to reference so many things. Just so that it's used by Flutterflow to reference a lot of things, and they don't want the names to clash with what they are actually doing in the background, right? That's the best and simplest way I can explain that to you. So you can't use the exact word. You can use a different word, maybe ref, right? Ref ID, that's what I normally use. And we can save this, and we have our API call set, right? The next thing that we need to do is we also need to create an API call for verify transaction. Now, what's verify transaction? If you read the documentation, this is one of the simplest ways to check whether a payment that was made before is actually successful. But before we talk about verify transaction, I want to let you know that in this particular lecture, we're going to be learning that's why it says a full tutorial. We're going to learn two different methods, right? The manual and the automatic ways of making payments with both Paystack and Flutterwave, right? The manual and automatic ways of doing it, right? So right now, the next lecture, I'm going to teach you about the manual way of actually verifying transaction, and then we'll now go into the automatic way of doing it. Okay, guys, so I told you in the last lecture that we're going to be learning two different methods, manual and automatic, and that's why I said that this particular lecture is packed, right? And you're going to understand why shortly, because we're going to move from less technical to very technical. All right, so let's go into this next method. Now, once you make a payment so first things first, we initialize a transaction in Paystack, right? And then we need to know if this payment was successful. Why? Because if you have goods or services you need to give that user after they've made a payment, we need to make sure that it was successful first. Now, to do that, Paystack will have to give you some kind of information that will tell you that, hey, this payment was successful, or hey, this payment was not successful. So how do we do that? How do we make that work? Right? Now, the way we make that work is you can just check it here, verify transaction. We can literally confirm the status of a transaction, whether it was true or false. And we can see that all we need to pass is a reference, and this is a get call, not a post call, because we're only getting information from Paystack. All right, but we can see something called path parameters. Now, if you're attentive, you notice that this is called body parameter. This is called path parameter, which is quite different from body parameter. Now, what does that mean? Now, let's try and create that call that we're seeing there. So this is called confirm, right, transaction. Now, it's time to put our endpoint. What's our endpoint? Our endpoint is this. Now, you can see something different here. We don't have body. We have something called query parameters. Now, query parameters are a method of sending dynamic content, right? Dynamic content in the URL of our API call, right? So what does that mean? Now this, let me just add this call first. This call is telling us that we need to pass a reference in the URL of this verified transaction endpoint. Now remember that when we made a call here, the initialized transaction, a reference was given to us. If you remember, 7p Paystack automatically created a reference for us, right? Now over here, we can send that reference here and check whether the status of that transaction is true or false. Good. So let's do that now. Now, to make things dynamic in flutterflow, like in our API connector here, the easiest thing to do is this. This is what I always do. Remember, put it in brackets like this. Now, once you put it in brackets like this, you can come to the query parameter section, and I won't call it reference. Remember, a reference is a keyword in that. You can't play around with it in flutterflow like that. So I'll call this ref ID. All right. Now, I'm just going to copy the same name. It has to be the same name. Same name here. It doesn't have to be the same name that was here though, because we're not passing the same name as reference. We're only passing whatever the reference, was. That's what we're passing. That's what makes it successful. This is just like a keyword to tell you that, oh, it's the same thing that's supposed to be here though, that we're passing, right? What we're looking for is this. So we don't need it to be the same name, all right? That's how we can bypass this issue that we have in flutterflow. So we'll go to from variable. Now, it cannot be specific value. It's not going to work. You need to go to from variable and still create a variable. So you create a new variable and you see automatically that ref ID has been created for you. And you can just select the data type that it's supposed to be. These are, you have to create a query parameter and a variable too with the same name. All right. Now, it's going to be string because this is just a string of text. As you can see, it's not numbers only, right? And it's even always safer to use string. So we'll go to response and test, and we can pass the reference ID here to check whether the call is successful. And you can see that even here too, the our API code or our secret code is also added here automatically because of the group settings. So I'm going to save this section here, and I'm going to go over to initialize transaction, and I will create another transaction. Now I'm going to copy this reference here, and let's go and check whether this transaction that we know we have not paid for is successful. So I'm going to go to response and test. I'm going to paste it here. Sorry. And we'll test API call. As you can see, we've gotten a response back. So the first thing we saw was status true. All right. Verification successful. ID this. Domain status abandoned. So we see that this status is actually interesting to get information from, because we know that we've not paid. This one says true. It's quite confusing. This one is telling us it was abandoned, which we know is definitely abandoned. So we can, now you can see another one called gateway response, which is saying transaction was not successful or completed. So these two actually give us some kind of information that we need. All right. So I'm going to get access to the let's look for the information that we need. So from gateway response number one, status number two, this is actually cool. What else again? So I think that's what we'll take information from now. And you can browse through this. So you can see an example of a very long JSON response that you will now need to know the JSON parts to get exactly what you want. All right. So I'm just going to copy gateway response here, and I'll paste it here, and I'll copy status here too, and I'll paste it here. So now let's try and test if an API call was successful, and let's see what happens. So like that means a payment was successful. Let's come over here, and I'm going to use a smaller amount, like let's say 2,000 naira, and I'm going to test API call, and I am going to copy this URL here, and this should work very quickly. Should work really quickly. So let's see. So Paystack checkout loading, success, pay 20 naira. Awesome. So we just set for 20 naira and it went successfully. Now let's copy this reference from here, and we are going to go to confirm transaction, response and test, and we're going to paste the reference here, and let's see what we get in these two fields here. So you can see successful, success. So we can check if status or gateway response is equal to successful or success, then we can deliver our product or service. Now I'll show you how that works later. Just stay tuned. Let's save this. Now, this is just the basic way that we can add Paystack payment to our app. Now, let me show you something more technical, still under the manual format, right? Now, in our manual format, we have two methods. We have this thing. It's called polling, which I'll show you. I'll show you some information about it later. It's called polling, but it involves that we would okay, let me explain this right now. There are two ways in which we can make Paystack work in our app, right? We can create a method where the payments are done directly inside of our application, which I'm going to show you later at the end of this video and everything. The payments are done inside of the app. The user pays in the app, and then the verification is also done inside of the app. So once user has made a payment, we will not, because this is a link, it's actually a link that we get back, right? So we don't want to send our users to maybe sometimes a browser outside of the app. So we can work with Flutterflow's web feature. So this is their web feature here. So it's called Web View. We can work with it to actually load a website content inside of it. So we can just pass the Paystack URL here, and then we can be making a call automatically using periodic actions, right? To check that verify endpoint, right? This verify section, whether or confirm transaction, whether the payment is successful. So, but the issue is we have to keep doing it again and again and again, and it can cause some what we call rate limits, which I'm going to explain later. Now, the second method, which is a bit better, right, is to send the user to an external web page in your app, and then send the user back to your app with a link, which I'm going to explain too. So these are two methods. Then there's the last method, which falls under automatic, which is more technical, and we'll go into that later. All right. So because we want to account for the second method where we send a user to an external link, I'm going to duplicate this Paystack call here. I'm going to duplicate it, and we're going to say Paystack payments, right? to external link. So this is Paystack payment to an external link, right? So that's to an external web page or something. So let me even explain more. Okay, so this is good. Now let me save it. And we're going to go over to initialize transaction, confirm transaction copy. Now, in initialize transaction, there are things we need to do to make this particular session work or feature work. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to go back to the initialize transaction and check for more information that we can send to it. Now, the first information we can send to it is called callback URL. This is what I told you about. So we can actually send the user to an external browser with that link that is generated in the initialized transaction. And then once the payment has been done and is successful, the user will be directed back to our application, right? This is more technical than the other one. This one is can be much more easier than this one. So they are directed back to our application, right? With information that, oh, our payment was successful, right? Now, the reason why I think I like this method better is because this one, you have to, and we'll see that later, you have to keep calling the verify or confirm transaction endpoint multiple times because you're inside of the application. And sometimes if you keep calling it that like an API call that many times, it can cause issues because maybe to start rejecting your calls for a period of time, which you do not want because you are doing it too frequently, right? And if you have a lot of users on your application doing that same thing with that same endpoint with your secret key, it can cause issues. So this method here only does it when the user has maybe made a payment or something or cancelled or something, right? It only does it when necessary, not to keep checking it second per second per second. And like I said, you're going to see more information about that as we go deeper, right? So let's check this initialized transaction copy. And like I said, there's something called callback URL. Now, fully qualified URL, use this to override the callback URL provided on the dashboard. Now, let me explain what this is. So, callback URL is a URL that you can tell or send to Paystack about your website or your application, right? That they can send the user back, oh, this is the page that they want the user to land on when payment has been made. So let me explain that again, right? So when you've made, because let's see, look at this here. When we generate the Paystack link, you know that this link here is to Paystack's website. It's not our own website. We don't have control over it. So we would want our users to have a page that is part of our website or our application, right? That is our own. So that when payment has been made, the user is directed back to that website or that app, and then we can, do something or not do something to, make something successful or whatever we want to do, right? Based on the redirection that has been done for our users. And that is what this callback URL does. So let's copy the callback URL and we'll go over to call definition, go to body. Then we're going to add an extra parameter here. So I want to go to variables because I want that callback URL to be dynamic. Awesome. Save. Now let's test it out. So let's say, for example, we want the user to be directed to, let's say, ChatGPT after payment has been made. So I'm going to paste that link here. And I'm going to generate. So let me delete and put message 6,300. And let's copy the link and paste it here. Enter. So we say success, pay and let's see what happens. So after payment successful, it should direct us to chat or OpenAI. Okay, I'm not sure why it did not direct us back to OpenAI, but let me test again. Let's see. Okay, so since it did not direct us back, I'm going to check here, make sure that we did it properly. Callback URL, we did not add it. Oh, I forgot. So let me put this here. I'm so sorry, guys. Format, save. That was my bad. So let's try it again. Copy, paste this here. Enter. So let's successful transaction, pay. To take us to see automatically taking us back to ChatGPT. And let me show you something that is important, right? In the link that we are getting here, we're not just getting chat.openai.com as we put here. All right. What we're getting is something different. Paystack is automatically sending the reference of the transaction. All right. And, so let's see. I think they're even sending it twice. They are sending here TRX ref, and they're also sending it here as reference also, which is really, really cool. All right. Okay, guys. So as we can see, Paystack, we just we added a callback URL. So that means after a successful payment on Paystack, it should take us to a particular link, right? So let me just copy this link and paste it into ChatGPT and ask it to explain what we're seeing here, right? Can you explain this link? So because what we put in was just this. We didn't put in this full URL here, right? Let me just say as a query parameter. So basically here, we have a base URL here, and we have a query parameter, right? Now, let me try to explain this because I don't think ChatGPT is even helping me out here. All right. Now, what happened over here is Paystack automatically added two parts to this link. What does that mean? As they are sending you back to your app or website or whatever, they are sending extra information in the URL that you can actually use to verify whether the person has paid. Because right now you can see they are sending 720S, which is I think the same thing that we have here. 720, it ends with 8C. 8C. So basically, this is the reference, the same reference that we can use to reference and check whether a transaction was completed. So they're sending it to your app, and if you can find a way to access this information here into your app, you can actually call a verify or confirm transaction, whatever you call it, endpoint, and check whether a transaction is successful, which means problem solved. So you can see it, right? So the only question is, how do we send a user to our link to our app? Because we're not working with a website, we're working with an application. How do we send them to a link to our app? And how do we get information from the link, right, in our application in Flutterflow? So that's a question I'm going to answer when it's time to actually fully build out this feature, right? This second feature, which is sending users to an external web page when it's time. But for now, we'll circle back to this question later, and that will be later. But for now, let's try and build out the UI interface for this particular payment section here. So, which is the initialize and then confirm. So let's say we have our app here, and in our app we have the page called payments page, payment, and we have another page, duplicate, that will be for verify transaction. Oh, it's not, sorry. Okay, so what I will do is simple. I'm going to add about 2 fields. The first field is going to be, let's see, label text is going to be email. All right, and I'm going to make the default text there, initial value, user at email, right, .com. That's what I'm going to leave it as. Then I'm going to duplicate this. Sorry, let me wrap it in a column because it's only it can't work. So yeah, so let me click on the column and give it a spacing of 25. So this is going to be amount. All right, so I'm going to move this. I can put whatever amount I want. Amount. Then I'm going to have a big old button in the middle. Right? So this button will be pay now. So it's time to start working on it. So basically what we need to do right now is we have these 2 fields that we need, which is basically what you will need when you're building. Then we have this pay now button. And we're going to click on open, click on this add action here. I'm going to say API call, right? Now will be group Paystack payment, initialize transaction, then set additional variables. So we need to send the information that we're going to need dynamically. So first we need the email, then we need the amount, then we also need to pass the API key. Now, in this section here, where you're working with API key, if you saved your key in your back end, in Firebase, you can do a query, you can query the collection that you saved it and then pass it in the API key. If you don't know how to do that, you can ask me in the comment section and I will try and provide description on how to do that. But yeah, that's what you need to do. So I'm going to go and copy my API key and I'll be right back. And I'm going to be pasting my API key here. You can't see the full thing, so let's go to the amount section, and we're going to connect the amount section to the widget state amount, and we'll connect the email to widget state user at email.com. Awesome. Now, once the API call is successful, now you can handle if it's not successful here. Before probably you can check the internet connection of the user, do whatever you need to do here if it's not successful. But if it is successful, what we're going to do is we're going to add an action, right? And that action is going to be to probably send the user to another page. But we have a couple of other things to worry about. Now, the first thing we need to worry about is, number one, we need to pass Okay, I actually did not do that. Now, if you go and read Flutterflow's documentation here, sorry, if you go and read Paystack's documentation, you can see that you can actually create your own reference as your own company. For example, now, if you don't want Paystack to generate their own reference for you, you can actually pass your reference in the body parameter, right? You can pass your own reference. So that's something that I do in my own project, but you don't actually need to do that. That's what I was trying to reference to. Let me check. Let's check our API call, initialize. We actually taking, are we taking note of the reference? Okay. So we'll just use whatever Paystack generates for us right now. It makes it easier for us. So once the API call is successful, what we would do is we are going to pass the user over to the next, to another page, which is going to be verify transaction. All right. Now, what we're going to do next is we'll add a parameter here. The parameter is going to be ref id. It's going to be a string, and we're going to confirm it. Good. So what's going to happen here is this. We are going to pass the reference from this API call we get. That's why we needed to define exactly what we wanted to get from the API call. So we're going to go to action output, because this is an action, and the action surely has a value if it was successful, right? So we need to go to action output to get the value from it. So API result, you can see it's the same thing for this one here. API result, we'll click here, we'll click on JSON body. That's how we get the information that we want. JSON path, then we'll click on, so you see ref ID. So we can pass the ref ID over here. Now, the next thing that we'll also need should also be the link, payment link here. That will be a string, confirm, and we can pass it here. So the link, if you guess it right, will also come from the API result. Good. Now that I've done this, we can go back to the other page and start building what we want. So firstly, we are going to add a web view, and we're going to make the web view 100%. Now, in this web view, normally you have a link here to a website you want to view. But in this case, we are going to connect this link to the parameter we're getting from the payment link parameter on the page, so that we can easily have a unique Paystack link always showing up, right, that we're sending to the page. All right. Now, once we've done this, you will know that in this particular page, the same way we normally see Paystack when we want to pay, that's what's going to be happening on this page here. So because Paystack is not our platform, we don't have access to Paystack, we need to know when the user has paid, because when the user has paid, they should not still be on this page, because Paystack will not going to show them any button that, oh, you are done with paying, go back to the home page, whatever. They won't do that. So we don't want to keep our users waiting. So we want to automatically do something when they have paid, right? So what we'll do is that on this page here, we can click on the top of the page. We can click on the top of the page, and we can go to the action section over here on the top of the page. Action section. Now, this is how you can set automatic actions in Flutterflow. One of the ways you can do that. Now, on page load, once this page has loaded, we are going to add a periodic action. All right. And I think the best thing to do will be after every 2 seconds. That every 2 seconds verifies. So we'll go to confirm. Sorry, let me use an API call. Okay, so I'm going to do a confirm transaction call. Then let's set the variables here. We need a ref ID, which conveniently we pass through the page parameter. We also need an API key, right, which I'm going to add shortly. Let me close, go to the other page, and click here, open, verify. So let's go. So I'm going to go to the other page. uh, verify transaction, open. So this is how we can make it on page load. It's automatically checking. So the periodic action is a way to activate an action, right, that checks that performs regular actions, right, or performs something regular based on the amount of time you give it. So as long as this condition, like as long as this periodic action is here, it will keep performing this action until you set a condition that it should stop, right? To keep doing this every 2 seconds. So you always need to be careful with the periodic action so that it doesn't break your app, because it sometimes it can take a lot of phone, like it takes a lot of power from the device to actually execute these actions if it's on for so long, right? And it can affect you when you're trying to release your app. Okay, API transaction. So let me just paste the key here. Okay, so that's all we need to do. So true. What we're going to do now is we're going to add an action. So now if this is true, this is succeeded, right? Now let me do something quickly. We know that in the API call section here, right, confirm transaction, response test, ref ID. Now, once we make the call, we check for status and gateway response equals to successful. So let me copy that text quickly so that we don't miss it. Successful, all right? So this is what we're looking for, that gateway response is successful. But the thing here is, if there was an error with this ref ID, we're not going to see any gateway response at all. For example, if I move out, just remember that it's going to only show status true, right? Sorry, it's like even this status is not showing. I think there's a different status too. Let me check this status here. I think I might not have added that one yesterday by mistake. I made a mistake actually. So it's supposed to be dot status. All right, so this is false. So you can see false. But if it is true, which is let me add an R here. Test API call. The information I'm going to get back from it here, you see, true. So yes, let me save this. So this is what I want to check. Right, first, if the response is equal to true, then we know that it something actually happened, right? That means we know that, oh, we're getting some information back. All right, so then let's go back to, because we don't have access to see this entire thing, but we want to tell our app to how to interpret the information that is coming here. So we're going to go back to the main page here, and we're going to go back to these actions here. And we're going to say that there's a add conditional action, and the conditional action is going to check based on a condition, right? The response from the API call. Let's see, action output, API. API response options, JSON body, JSON path, gateway, no, status here, right? So I want to look at the status and say confirm. So if the status is equal to, right? So you can say true or false. So if it is equal to true, right? Then we can do something. If it is equal to false, right? Then we can know that, oh, it didn't work, right? So let's see. We don't have to put anything here because it's a periodic action. It's going to keep performing the action every 2 seconds. We don't need to do anything. If the customer gets tired and doesn't want to pay, they can click here and then just leave. Or you can deploy any other logic you want. But we'll just keep checking, and if it's ever status equals to true, then we can come down here and say add another conditional action and say condition. All right. And look at, we're going to check the API response options. All right. And check JSON body. We're going to check the JSON paths. We're going to check gateway response, and I'm going to check whether it's equal to. Okay, so if the gateway response is equal to successful. So if it's equal to successful, then we know that, oh, something happened here, and the API call is successful. So this is conditional actions. I think a lot of beginners have issues with understanding logic like this, how it works with flutterflow. If you need help with it, comment down below and I'm going to create a beginner friendly video for you. So don't worry about that. So true, once it's true, what should happen? For now, I'm just going to say snack bar. show snack bar, successful, payment, payment successful. All right, great. Now, on your own, you can do any other logic you want from here. For example, you could create a new transaction record in your app. So typically in Firebase, if you're using Firebase, you want to have a transaction record where you store if the user had a successful transaction or not. Or sometimes at the moment of paying for the item, before you actually take or integrate Paystack here or you call the API, you can actually create a transaction record with a true or false statement that all you just need to do is with a true or false statement means status. Maybe you can create something like status. So you have things like amount, customer name, all those things. Then you have something like status, which is a Boolean field. So if it will be false at first, then when they successfully pay you, you can make it true. Just like this is happening. So that means the payment was actually successful. That's what you are going to do. It makes things easy. So I'm just going to put it for 2 seconds. All right. Sorry. And remember, immediately add the other action here so that this would stop. So you don't have to have this periodic action working in the background. And if you want to know how you want to stop a periodic action, this is how you stop it. Just go to stop periodic action and then you choose the timer you want to cancel. All right. So this is you just name it. This is instant timer. Just name it here and say, you can say stop periodic timer. All right. And then it will still execute other actions under it. So which is really cool. But this is just the way you do it. Now, once you've done this, this is how you successfully create a payment in Paystack using the first method. All right. So let's test out this method. Okay, guys, so we have our payments mode here. So it's in dark mode, so it's hard to see, but I'm sure you understand what's happening on the page. So we have the user at email.com. Let's put an amount. So I'm going to say 50,000 naira, right? And we'll say pay now. So this account is in naira. You can change it to your own currency. Now I'm sure we have some brethren from different parts, and shortly I'm going to show you how you can actually change it. But so let's see. Now you see it's automatically taking us to a page where we can pay, and we're going to make it successful. This is just a test mode. If you want to make it to on run mode, it's still going to work. So we just say pay 500 naira. And boom. So you see, automatically we are detecting that there's a payment successful. All right. But you can see that it keeps bringing it up. That's because I think my project reverted to an older version. I was trying to fix an error that had to do with Firebase. What you just have to do is end the add action, periodic action, stop. Then you can put it up here. And then other things can follow, after that, which is cool. So just reload. So yeah, you can see that that's working. Now, let me just address something. 2 things I want to address. So the first thing I want to address is that when you come over to the initialize transaction section, for anybody who is watching me from another part of Africa or the world, what you can do to receive payments from other currencies. Number one, make sure your Paystack account was registered in that currency and you have access to international payments. Now, Paystack has their rules around that. I think you have to be on the account for some time and show that you're actually a real person, because if you're working with international payments, they don't want to have the risks of you being a business that people are going to send refunds. In your country, if you're in Africa, it's not all the time that people ask for refunds. It's not really a culture here, but in the US and other parts of the world, people ask for refunds a lot. So you need to be prepared. And Paystack is trying to make sure that you're not that kind of business that people would not be satisfied from. So they have their rules. Just read about it. But once they're giving you access, you can actually do what I'm about to tell you right now. So there is a section called currency. All right, you can pass currency as a body, and if I'm to do that quickly, to just try and show you, sorry, that's a mistake. So if I'm to do that quickly, let me go to the API section and open it up for you. So I'm going to come to this section here, go to the body, and I'm going to put this. That's going to be, I think, currency. Let me just copy this quickly. Currency. Then going to have this. Then obviously we cannot make it static. We have to make it dynamic. So let's go over to variables and say currency. Good. So we'll say it is string, save. This does not affect us in any way. And we can say amount. Sorry, currency. Sorry. Then we'll drag it down there. Save. Now what that means is, for example, let's say we wanted to accept money. Now my account is not registered for international transaction. This particular account is not registered for it, so it's not going to work, right? But if I say this, I want to receive money in Ghana cedis, let's say test account, it's not going to work. Say currency not supported by merchant. But if yours is supported, it's going to work. You can say NGN, and then we know that we're only trying to receive money in Naira. Boom, it's going to work. We can say USD. I don't think there's a particular page I've seen where they mention how you must write the parameter, but I think you should just write your normal currency parameters, right? Depending on your country, and it should work. So basically, because I've done this, I have to actually update it in the code there too, where I built it. So in the payment section, I just go to pay now, and what we'll do is go to the API call section and add another value. That value is going to be currency, and this is just going to be NGN for now. And because you can actually, anytime you see this orange value, you can actually set this from a parameter. So probably you can add a drop down or something of different currencies in your application, and once they click on one, it will just update this field here, and voila, you can accept multiple currencies. That is beautiful. Now Flutterwave allows you to easily pay in different currencies. It's more easier than Paystack, but yeah, let's just continue. Now we have seen this work. If you want to switch from test mode to live mode, go to your Paystack platform. Go to Paystack. Once you go to Paystack, you can easily go to your dashboard where you copy your secret key, and then instead of copying secret key, go to the live key and copy from there. And all you just need to do is this section here where you put your key, right? Here, over here, instead of using the test key, SK test, it will be live. That's what's good. That's all you need to do. All you need to do, and people will be able to pay you. You'll be seeing all these test modes and everything here. All right. So let me say, so I want to show you another thing that you need to notice. I'm putting 40,000 Naira right now in Naira. I'm saying pay now. All right. It's taking me to the web page. Successful, right? But if you notice, I put 40,000 Naira. Why is it only showing me 400 Naira? What's going on? And now I think this is only for NGN. I don't know. I've not really checked for other currencies in documentation, but for NGN, there is a particular rule you need to follow, right? So let's just pay this and let's see. Good, payment successful. That periodic action should have stopped. Okay, I've not reloaded the page. All right. So yeah, now let me explain what's going on with Paystack. And I don't know, I've not really seen it in the documentation in a while. I don't know where exactly, but I've been working with Paystack for some time now in terms of integrating it. Let me see if I can find it. Amount, supported currency. Okay, guys. So the last time I was checking for this thing, it took me a while to find it. All I just did was I just typed NGN in the search bar here, and I was able to find it. I can't believe I didn't do that the last time. But I think if you click on supported currency to take it down here, Paystack makes use of the ISO 4217 format for currency codes when sending an amount. That's why it's a standard way of doing it. That's why all the currencies I was showing were working, right? Now, you need to know that, okay, for Kobo, the base unit is, for NGN, the base unit is Kobo. For USD, the base unit is cent. For Ghana cedis, the base unit is Pesewa, right? For ZAR, it's cent. For KES, it's cent. That's Kenyan shilling. So it's giving you all the information here. Now, you are going to have different currency, like you are going to have a different conversion based on your own base units, right? But the first thing you need to know is what's the base unit of that, like what's the amount of this of the base units that will equal to 1 USD. What amount of kobo would equal to 1 NG? And that's the first thing you need to find out if you want to work with this thing. Because right now the issue here is that we're not sending, you see this one, I think I put 20,000 or something, or 2,000. We're not sending the right base unit for Paystack. Now, not Flutterwave doesn't go through the same stress. This is only a Paystack thing, right? That's why I say let me address it quickly. So let me go back to it. So base units, and like I said, for Peswa to send here to Kenyan shilling, whatever you're working with, find out how much or how many or what's the amount of the base unit that will equal to 1 NGN, or amount of send that will equal to 1 USD, etc. So for Nigeria, now you can go to ChatGPT and ask you that question. It's very, very, very simple. But for Nigeria, 100 kobo is equal to 1 NGN. 100 kobo is equal to 1 NGN. Now, once you have mastered that, you can see that they're even giving you an example here. Sending amount in subunit simply means multiplying by the base amount. So, like I said, for example, you can see for a payment of 100 naira, you would spend 10,000. You send 10,000 as the base unit code. So let me show you an example. Now, if you see the example here, sample request, amount is 10,000. This is equals to 100 naira. So what you do is before you send an amount to Paystack to make a payment with them, you are going to have to multiply that amount by 100. That's the only thing you need to do. So let's pull up a calculator right now. Calculator. And we are going to say, if we want to send 50,000 naira, right? We are going to have to multiply it, right? By 100. That's for naira. So this is what I'm meant to send. All right, this is 5 million. So let's test it right now. Let's go to our test mode version here. So you can see 50,000 naira. So you just need to multiply it. And if you wanted to bring it back, so okay, let me just in case you are curious about that, all you just need to do is, divide, sorry, I made a mistake. Divide that amount that you got. So this is 5 million, right? Divide it by 100 and you get the original amount back. But you don't need to do this at all in Paystack. This is the only thing you need to do, that you have to calculate something special to convert whatever amount you're working with. When Paystack is sending information back to you, they will send the actual amount you send to them. So success, pay 50,000 naira, and boom, payment successful, done. All right. Now let's go over to the pay to flutterflow, and let's ask ourselves a question: how can we integrate this same logic in flutterflow in a way that we're not going to have to do that again and again, or calculate manually by ourselves, right? It's very simple. Now, one of the simplest methods would be to come over to something called custom functions, which if you don't know about custom functions, we can talk about that another time. But let me just give you the basis of custom functions, right? You can pass arguments that can be converted into a return value. So for example, 2 plus 2, this can be number 1. Number 1, this is number 2. Remember, I'm teaching local developers here, people that don't have any experience with Flutterflow. So if you know this already, you can skip. So we have number 1 and number 2. So these are numbers. Integers means numbers, right? This one also means numbers. So you can calculate with them. If it was string, it can't work. So we'll say we're returning back an integer, and we can say something like, okay, so this is a code pilot in Flutterflow where you can write code with AI. So like I said, all custom functions do is a special way of performing, and it is performing some kind of logic in your app, right? That can be executed in the variables. Let me just see. So I can't save it yet. Let me just finish it first. So we can say addition, All right. So we can say add number one to number two. So it's going to generate a code for us, code snippet that works in flutterflow perfectly. So say copy function. Yes. Boom, we have it here. Now, if you're on the web version, this is an app, flutterflow app. It's only for MacBook. So if you're on the web version, you can be able to test this thing perfectly. So I'm going to allow it to load up. But yeah, this code is going to work no matter what. All you just need to do is provide the number one and number two, and you would return the answer here. So it's still loading up. Okay, so let's go to, it's not showing here. I don't think it has saved yet. So that's why it takes some time to save from here. But yeah, you can test it. You'll see a test version if you're on the web. Test this. So you add the number one and number two, and you should get your integer back. Now that's one way to do it. So if we want to do this, we can call this paystack calculation. All right. And we'll come over here and say multiply. So we can call this price. Whatever you want to call it, you can call it that. Right? Multiply price by 100. You just call the name there. So once you do that, it's going to automatically. So now remember, when it comes to this AI section, if you're a beginner, you don't know that you have to actually set this with this defined argument and the integer, all this is, you don't know you're meant to do that. So that is only when you do it that you'll be able to easily create your custom function. That's the only way it's going to work. So let's save the function. And you can see for different kind of calculations in your app. So let's say we want to make a payment now. We'll come over to this initialize transaction because that's where we're going to send the payment that we need. And let me just leave this page here. That's where I'm going to send payment that we need. So let's do it quickly. So we have amount here, text field amount. So I'm going to copy this and let's use let's see. So we'll look for custom functions. Paystack calculation, all right? Price is going to come from that text field amount that we had before, all right? We don't need any number value or anything. It's automatically calculated for us and we would have what we need. So let's reload this page and I'm sure it's going to work. Now, while this is reloading, I'll show you the second method quickly. Let me make sure that it works. I'm going to show you the second method quickly. The second method is to do this simple step, right? Instead of doing all of those things where you go to the custom function section, all you just need to do is we can just click on code expression. Now, this is a one way to make simple calculations or just take a like it for me. I use it for calculations a lot. You can do other things, but I think it's majorly for calculations, right? Majorly for calculations. There are other things you can do, but still similar to custom functions. It takes arguments and is meant to return something back to you, so you can calculate with it or do some other things with it too. So for example, we can say this is price. This is faster. Price. We'll say integer. All right, which are going to pass from the amount field and it's going to return an integer back. And we'll just, in this expression, what we'll do is you have to use the exact same name here, copy this, right? The exact same name so you can know which field is looking for or trying to work with. We're going to paste it here and we can now use this expression times 100. If it was plus, you use plus. If it was minus, you use minus. Check for errors. If there are no errors, then you can pass it. So I will not want any number format. I'll say no further changes. Let me send it as it is, the information as it is, and boom, we should be able to work with that. So let's test it right now. Let's try and reload our page again. So either of the two should work. So start periodic action. Also stop. I've not set watch. That's why I was still playing in the background. Then I have another error. Errors found in custom function. So okay, there's an error here. Let's see. I'm coming. I think is this nullable values that is here, because let's just see. Let me try and compile it again. And we'll just go to the code pilot and say add, okay, sorry. Times the, okay, sorry. Let me just write this easily. Price times 100. That's what I'll just write. Very simple. Should understand what I'm saying. Sorry. I don't know. I don't think I looked at what I was saying, what I did earlier. So maybe that's why they had the error. So let's just um compile that. So there's no error. It was not the nullable fields. So let me go back here and we should be able to test the app. So whether you're working with the custom functions or this method I just used, it's going to work perfectly. But me, I think most times I always prefer custom functions, especially when you're dealing with large calculations and things like that. It handles it better, in my opinion. So let's say we want 5 or 50,000 naira, right? Let's say pay now. Let's see whether it's actually giving us what we want. All right. Now, if everything works well, you should see that in the background, it sends the right value for us. Success, pay, and voila, we're done. And this only showed once. Cool. So let's continue. Now, in the next video, I'm going to show you the second method of actually working with Paystack, which is the other URL, the URL method where we send to an external URL, so that we don't have to keep calling the verified transaction endpoint every 2 seconds. It's when you are trying to grow your and have a lot of users in your app, at some point that method is not going to work so well for you. Okay, guys. So before I take you through the section where and let me explain, instead of paying inside of our app, we can make users we can direct them to an external web page using the same link. And once they make a payment, we can direct them back to the app. How do we do that? Just in case anybody is interested in that one. We'll click on enter screen and let me show you the basis of it. Now, Flutterflow has something called they have something called parameters, right? Parameters. And let me show you what a parameter is, basically. Let me show you what a parameter is. So a parameter is on a page, is this thing here. Page parameters. Parameters. All right. A parameters is what we see here. And with a parameter, when we use a link, right, to access our app, we can actually send special characters or special information to that parameter. It's not, I think most of us as no-code devs, working with Flutterflow, we only understand where we send information from one page, pay now, right, sending information to this other page using this. But you notice that it has to have the same name too, right? So you say, oh, I'm sending message to this ref ID or to this payment link. But we can also do that with links too. And how does that work? Firstly, you have to understand that Flutterflow has something with Firebase called, let's check, dynamic linking. So go to app details. There's something called deep linking, basically. All right. Dynamic links. Now, on your own, you can actually go and check the tutorial on Flutterflow about it. But once you click on enable or use Firebase dynamic links, something happens. All right, something happens to your app. So I'm not going to use this particular app because I've not enabled Firebase for it. I'm just using Firebase from a different application I'm going to teach you about shortly. There's another application that I worked on for a lecture. This is a bill payment app. So I'm going to give you information about that later in the future, right? Maybe in the next few days. But for now, if you go to my settings, see, I have enabled Firebase dynamic links. So you see whether to use Firebase dynamic linking for this app. See tutorial for more information. So you can read any of this if you've enabled it. Now, what should you expect if you enable it? So to enable this feature, firstly, so remember, let me just tell you why we enabling it, because we want to create a link that can send users to any place in our app. So for example, if somebody clicks this link right now, they'll be able to take it will take them to this app, the home page, right? And once it takes them here, if they never downloaded the app too, what this dynamic link is going to do is that if they click on it and they've never downloaded the app, it will take them to either Play Store or App Store, depending on the device they are on, which is really, really cool. But right now, we want to use it to take users back to our app. So we are going to go to Firebase. This is the same Firebase project. All right. And we're going to go over to dynamic links. And under dynamic links, what we're going to do is we are going to say new. Now, I've already done it. I've already done this step. So you can follow Flutterflow's documentation on it. They have a lot of information about it already. But once you create, you're going to be taken through a step to create a dynamic link. Once you've done that, you have this here. Now you can copy this first section and paste it back in Flutterflow. Now, if you have any error with these dynamic links, you can message me down below in the comments, right? Or check my number, right? It's been provided there. So in case you need help, right, to ask questions, I can offer help, doing a booked section. Anyways, so once you've done that, now we've enabled dynamic links in our app. Very, very simple. Now, the next thing we need to do is, typically in Flutterflow, if you want to work with dynamic links, you click on this icon or any icon. For example, let's say this is a share icon to share a link to another person, right? You click here, and what will happen? Let me not even use that one. Let's use this text. Let's say this text is called share to a link to somebody. The way you can work with it in Flutterflow is you say generate current page link. Without this, it's not going to work. So you can add a title, you can add a preview image, description, whatever you need. You also add an App Store ID. App Store ID is when you are releasing your app to the App Store. And other things, there's a video that I will recommend that you watch if you want to learn more about constructing dynamic links. But once you do this, you can now create or add a share action, right, that can allow users. So you go to widget state, current page link, and users can now share the generated page link. Now, what does that mean? It means that you can't go around just giving users this link like this. Flutterflow needs to add some things to this link to make it work. Now, some things that can be added to the link are parameters. Awesome. Now, I told you Flutterflow does a lot of the work in the background, but we're not going to use Flutterflow's links. We're going to create our own dynamic link based on what we've added here. Like I said, that video I recommended earlier is perfect. You have to go and check it out and subscribe to his channel. He is an amazing Flutterflow content creator, right, on YouTube. All right. Now let's click here. And you see, so this is going to be typically your link, right? Then you see this question mark here. You can add all the parameters that your page is going to get up here. You can add all of them. And what does that mean? It means that whatever message you are sending to that page, when people land on that page, that is equal to or that looks exactly like what you have in this parameter here, it is going to take that information. All right. Very, very simple. Now let's try and build this ourselves. So I'm going to scroll down and let me see. So you can see Firebase dynamic link. This is an example of a dynamic link here. This entire thing. And this entire thing here is going to open up a section in my app where whatever page I want, there's a way to actually construct the link. Now, like I said, that video would help you construct your own dynamic links. There's no special method to it, but there's a formula that you have to use. If you don't use that formula correctly, it's going to break your app. Now, firstly, we have the base URL. The base URL is this link that you got from Firebase at first, then with a slash in front of it. Then the next thing we have is ST, which we can see over here. So we have question mark. It must look exactly like this. Question mark. So if you want access to how this looks, I'm going to post the structure in my comment section if anybody asks for it. But first you have base URL. Then we have ST, which is basically the name of the page you're trying to point to. And like I said, flutterflow, when you go to generate dynamic link or current page link, they do this automatically and they shorten it. If you check flutterflow here, so you are just trying to do the manual process that flutterflow will normally automatically perform or in the background, right? If you check that link section that I was doing earlier, there's a point to say shorten URL. Okay, so let's go back. So we have the name of the page, then we have another thing called APN. So and APN, it must look exactly like this. So for example, now once you have the name, the link that you copied from Firebase, question mark, you will put the name of the page that you want to direct to. So for example, the name of the page here is home main, right? Home main, the page. So that's the page that you want to use to verify the payment. So let's say that this is where I want to verify the payment, home main. All right. So for this example here, I'm going to create another page, right? Just for testing. Sorry, keeps messing up. So we'll say Paystack. I think this is what I was using before. Paystack. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a so this is called Paystack, right? Let me just construct this page quickly. Okay, guys. So behind the scenes, on this project, I added a Paystack call. So let me show you how it looks. I added a Paystack call where the amount is fixed and the email is also fixed here. And that's what I did. So you'll notice that on this page, I'm not adding any text field for amount or whatever, but that's what I'm doing. I'm just sending it as a fixed value. The only thing I made dynamic was the callback URL. So once you click on pay, it activates Paystack. And let me show you how it looks. Now, I'm showing you how I constructed my URL here. Do the same thing and it should work for you. So firstly, you have your the link that you have. So this is a combined text feature. I'm sure you should know what a combined text feature is in Flutterflow. Combine text. You can combine text together, right? So I'm not doing that right now. So I've already done that here. So HTTPS, your link, then question mark ST equals to the name of your page should be added here. Remember, the name of the page should be added here. Then we have and APN. So what does this mean? This means Android package name, but that doesn't matter. You must have this exact same thing. Then this should come from, right? Let me show you where it should come from. It should come from the exact same name. So even if you change it later, you should have the exact same name that you have over here in the package name. All right. So let's go back here and check. The next thing that we need that is dynamic should be the and ISI, right? EC. This should be your Apple ID for the app. So when you've deployed the app to Apple, you need to have your Apple ID here, right? That's what you need to do. So some of these things can come from your backend in case you need to change them. You can just do a quick query or a backend call to whoever you store them in your backend and then pass it through here. So you can be dynamic with it. Now, the next thing is and link equals to HTTPS. Then we have all these characters here. Then you also have to add your link again, right? I did not make the rules. This is just what you need to do. Add the end of the link again. Then you add these special characters here again. Then you add the name of your page again. I remember I did not make the rules. It's just what you need to do, right? Then once you are done with all of this, you now put the final question mark and then on the other page, you are now directing your users to whether it's whatever page you want your users to come to and land and say, oh, payment has been successful. That page is what you're going to have to name. So in this particular app here, the name of the page I want users to still come back to is this same Paystack page. All right. So I'm going to go back to copy. So now let me delete this. I'm going to go back to Paystack and click on this page here. we're going to go back to this section here, and we're going to paste this. All right, Paystack. Then we're going to come down to this section here to paste Paystack there. Then we need to change this link from new selects to our own link. So this, we'll go here, we'll copy this, come over here, move over here, click here, click here, click here, open this page, then we'll paste the link here. Awesome. Now, the next thing we need to also do is we'll come over here too and paste that link here. Confirm. Then we need to go to our Android package name and copy this. Come over here. So we are passing all these Android package names and the Apple ID so that it will activate that feature I told you about earlier. That if the user has not downloaded your app before, it automatically take them to Play Store or the App Store. All right. Then what else? Is there any other thing I'm missing? Okay, so I think I'm done. It's that simple. Now I'm not going to change this one because I don't actually have an Apple ID yet, so it doesn't need to change. Paystack. So the next thing we need to do right now is we need to have some kind of parameter on this page that we can send information to. So for example, what you do is I'll just say ref ID. Now remember earlier there was a let me check ChatGPT quickly. Let me try and reload the page. There was a link that we got from flutterflow. Sorry, from Paystack. This was the link here. This was the parameter because we had question mark. Then the parameter is equal to this. So we can also copy this same name because we can't use the word reference. I love that Paystack gave us two different names here in the query parameter. I love that because Flutterwave doesn't do that, and it's annoying. That's why I'm going to teach you the other method of constructing your own links with your own parameters. But typically, when you send your own link, which will be all with that entire link that you just constructed, Flutterwave will, Paystack will automatically add. Even Flutterwave will do this too. The transaction reference of that particular transaction in the link so that you can query it yourself. But we can still add it by ourselves too. There's no harm. But what I'll do is I'm going to copy this reference here or parameter, and I'm also going to add it. Did I copy it properly? Sorry. It needs to be the exact name. Good. String. All right. Let's see. Good. So let's just do something quickly. Now, on your own, whatever I'm doing right now should represent your logic that should happen when they come back to the page where they've made payment. So this will just be font size will be 20, and let me duplicate this. Font size will be 20. So the font weight will be 600. Font weight should be 600. All right. Now let's go on to, so we'll say this is going to be ref ID. Ref ID, all right, and this is going to be the, I think TRX, sorry, made a mistake, oh my god, the TRX, I think this one is from Paystack, right? This is the information from Paystack, from Paystack. So we'll put equals to, now we're going to use a combined text feature for all of these fields here so that we can add more dynamic variables to it. So I think it's going to say, ref ID equals to, we're going to collect the information from the ref ID here, and this is going to be so let's copy this. So we'll say let's combine text, paste this here, and we'll say it's going to come from this section here. Beautiful. So when we first start our app, this is going to be empty. Now the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to create a condition. So just so you can, whatever I'm doing here on your own, you can replicate the same logic. All right. So we're going to go over here to where we have the color of the text. All right. This is just my own special way of showing you what is happening. I'm going to go to conditional value, and that's how you can actually pass some kind of value. This is how you can pass some kind of value inside based on a condition. So basically, for example, you can change the color, and you can add the value that you want to change the color to based on a condition. So basically, I'm going to go to single condition, and I'm going to say if ref ID is set and not empty. All right, that means there's actually information in the ref ID that is being sent to the page, because normally we're not going to have anything sent to that page, to that ref ID yet, unless it's coming from that link. So if that ref ID is set and not empty, what will happen? We'll have the success green mark. Else, you're just going to have, let's say, a darker color, a black color. That's not bad. So I'm going to copy this logic and paste it here too. And what I will say is, if txref, let's click here, txref confirm is set and not empty, all right, then what will happen is we're going to we know that Paystack has sent us some kind of information. It's going to be green. Beautiful. All right, beautiful. Then we're also going to see equal to, and then we're going to see the reference that is actually pointing to, which is beautiful also. So now let's check it out and test it that it's working. It's working, right? Okay, guys, so I just downloaded the app right now, and I've uploaded it to my phone here, which are going to see what's happening in real time with it. But before that happens, let's go over to this section here and let me show what I did also. Number one, you don't need to make these parameters required at all. It can happen occasionally that they are going to be filled up with something or not, right? So just make sure that in your logic you make sure that you account for, and flutterflow already does that for you. For example, if it's not empty or it's nothing is there, it will automatically default to this color. Things like that are not going to break your app. All right, that's why I did that. Another thing that I had to work on was the root page. I had to change this page to Paystack, the main page that we're going to be entering into the application. And then finally, if you click on the page here on the button, I also had to create a launch URL action. And the launch URL action is simple, launch URL. It takes the user to another to their browser. It sends them with a link, right? And the link is coming from the API call, the response option. All right, so let's check it out. So I'm going to click on the pay button right now. And once I click on the pay button, it's going to automatically direct me to Paystack. Okay, good. So once it has taken me to Paystack, I'm going to be directed to pay with card, success, pay 200 naira, and automatically it should take me back to the app. As you can see, ref ID has some information there, because you can see that it's green, but TRX from Paystack is equal to none. So sometimes the URL gets messed up, so that's why it's always good to create your own URL. So let's try and fix this or check what's going on right now. So currently we are checking whether, in fact, right now I'm just going to totally disregard this reference from Paystack at the moment. I'm going to disregard it. I've tested it out before, it works, but I just want to focus on this ref ID that we're working on right now. So what I will do is I'm going to copy this section, this down name, and let's make sure that the name is exactly what we actually added here. Ref ID. Okay, it is. Then you can see that the ref ID here is actually empty. That's why it's showing this. It's empty here. So what we're going to do is we are going to pass. So let's do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass the ref ID of the let's check. So from the API response options, JSON body, JSON path, URL. Sorry, not URL. Sorry, I think I meant to access the reference that we're creating. So let's see. The reference that Paystack is creating, I meant to access it. Sorry. This is it here. So once I've done that, I can come over here and I can go over to the launch URL section. Sorry, the API call section, callback URL. I think let's check whether we've set it correctly. Yeah, so we can come over here, API response options. Let's see, API response options. Ref ID. So what we're doing right now is that whatever reference was generated from this API call, right? We're telling Paystack that the link that should be sent back to us should include a reference ID, right? That is equal to the reference ID just generated here. Now you can tell that it's already working. This is the logic behind it. Now I'm not going to go further to test on my phone. I'm just going to end this meeting right now. I'm going to go further test it right now. So just you can play around with it on your own. Just so that once you do this correctly, it's going to automatically send you back to your app, right? With that particular link or that information. And once you get it, you can do anything you want to do with it. So let me show you what I'm going to do with it currently. So I'm going to copy the same logic here. And I can go over to the start page of my application and click on cancel here. So I just click here and we'll say on page load, what should happen? Same thing as the other one, right? We are just going to automatically check. Okay, sorry, let me delete this. So we don't need a periodic action here. We just need a conditional action that on this condition that ref ID is set and not empty. That means we know that we are coming from a link. Only if ref ID is set and not empty. Else, you can do any other thing you want here. If you had other things you wanted to add to the page. But if it is set and not empty and it is true, we can add an action and that action will be an API call. That API call is going to be let's see, I think we have a Paystack group here. I called it verify transaction. All right. So we can now do a verify transaction API call as soon as the page load was done, and then the reference is going to come from the ref ID that we're getting because we know it's set and not empty. And once it's successful, you can now employ whatever you want to employ. So I think typically, if I go back to this verify, let's say transaction, if I go back there and we check the response and test, let's test it out. So you see successful status is equal to true. All right. Now for me, I think I'll majorly look for this status equal to success, but let's try and test it. So if it was empty, let's see what comes out. Status false. So I'm going to pick from this status first, right? This is what I want to pick for. Let's check whether what it shows when is true. So this status shows true. All right, so that we know. So we'll check whether the status is equal to true, and then we can now check for gateway response equal to successful. Cool. So we can check for now. You know what to do already. I'm just going to save this step. All right, on your own you can do whatever you want to do. I'm just trying to make sure that this is complete for you. So I'm going to go to this action section here, go to open, and yeah, so add conditional action. You are just going to check if API response, I think this is the one here, ND. You can always name them yourselves. API response options, JSON body, JSON path, status is equal to true. So if it's equal to true, you can perform whatever action you want to perform. Maybe like, for example, you can check. Now, one of the methods I use is this same ref ID that we're passing along, that we're doing all these things to. What I will typically do is that on the pay section, where the user is supposed to pay, I will create a document, right? Now, what I will normally do is, I think in this app, I have something. So create document. I'll create a document called transactions. So let's say users transactions, and I'll add all the fields there, all the fields I need. And I'm sure that one of the fields will also be reference. So let's see, reference ID. All right. So that ID is going to be, so from variable, is going to come from that reference ID that we are trying to pass. That's coming from the API response. So let me try and copy it. We know that the API, the reference ID coming from here, that is coming from the API response. I'm going to feed it into this reference ID here. Boom. So I'll feed it into the reference ID here, and I'll do it before the launch URL. So I'll add all the information like the customer's name, customer's email, all those things, the customer's UID, like their user reference. I'll add it here. Then once I'm done, so I'll delete everything here. Let me just delete all this entire action because I'm done with it. But once I'm done, on this loading page here, let's see. I'm going to check if the reference ID set are not empty, and then I'm going to make a backend call and check whether the call was successful. If it was, right, what I'm going to do next, because this right now, the call is successful, but even though the call is successful, we still need to know the status, whether it's true, because a successful call is still a successful call. It can return failed or true at the same time. So once we check that, the next thing we can now do is that we can now add a query collection, right? We can query collection, probably user transactions, whatever you name it in your own single document. We're going to query and check for ref ID equals to the ref ID we're getting from this reference, the page parameter. So we're going to look for where it is, and then typically, just as a layer of extra security, I can say where UID, that UID equals to the particular user, or it can be email, whatever you're doing in your app. So equal to that particular user that created it. So we'll check for user UID. So I'm checking for that particular user that made it, whether it's that particular user that is on that page, so we can be very, very sure. You can name the output, user found, transaction found, transaction to verify. And once you do it, the next thing you can do is that once you've gotten the information, you can now update the document. So I can say update document. All right. So what am I going to update? I'm going to update the action outputs, transaction to verify, reference, right? And what am I going to update there? I'm going to update there should be a status I will normally add, status to true. That means this user has actually paid, and I can do other things in my app based on this logic after I've verified. Now I'll still add some actions if it's not correct, whatever you want to do on your verified payments page. I don't want to mess up my app. So yeah, that's the second method. Now we're going to go over to the last method, the most advanced method, right? and I will explain what that method is in the next video. But just know that this same method we're doing here, we can also take it over to Flutterwave and do the same thing. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you how you can do snippets of how you can do it with Flutterwave too. Okay, guys. So right now we've learned a bit about the two different methods to actually have payment in our app, which are, you can click on pay and direct them within the app, or direct them outside the app to a web URL and bring them back once they have successfully paid, which is really cool. But I'm going to take you to this documentation in Paystack, and it's the same thing with Flutterwave. But you need to understand something. There is a more superior method to verifying payment in our app because of different issues like network issues, pending payments, things like that. There are so many things that we have to look at when we are accepting payments from Paystack. So the two methods I taught you are not bad, right? But this one is more superior, and I'm sure that this is a lecture that you don't want to miss, because not many people talk about this thing. And in the web development space, webhooks are very important to make external apps talk to your app automatically. So right now, what is happening here is that once a user makes a payment, right, we take them within the app, and manually we keep checking. It's still a manual thing, even if it's automatic, you're not doing it, but it's a manual thing. Our app keeps checking the verified transaction endpoint, keeps checking it, asking Paystack or Flutterwave, has this user paid? And if it is true, then you now give them the services. If it is not true, right, what do you do? Right? What if they make that payment and the money has not reflected yet, but it's successful? Issues, network problems like this happen all the time. So we need to think about something like that, right? That's why webhooks are more superior. Now, if I come over to this picture that from Paystack, you see that the way polling, they call it polling and webhooks. The method we're using right now is called polling, right? So polling is where we make a payment process to Paystack server, and then we keep checking Paystack server every few seconds or every 1 hour, whatever amount of time you want to do it. There are more advanced methods than even this method that every 2 seconds we are doing it. You can do it every 1 hour, you keep checking, right? Now, the thing here is you keep asking their server any update, and until you get an update, then you now say yes, which is a really, really, let's say it's still a very manual process, right? And there are some issues with it. Let's read some issues that Paystack talks about. Number one, the mode of updates. So the mode of updating your information or your back end that this user has paid is manual. Is a manual method because we keep checking. That is manual. Then the second thing is rate limiting. Now, at some point, if you have a lot of, like, if, for example, now, I think this is not even the app that we're working with before. Let me quickly go to the app. I'm coming. I think it's... So if we keep calling the endpoint, the transaction endpoint every 2 seconds, right? At some point, let's say we have a lot of users, a whole lot of users that are trying to pay us at that period of time. Rate limiting states that, there can be a point where the API will no longer respond to your request so quickly. It might not respond, it might lag or something. This manual method is not always so reliable. There's sometimes you call an API, even ChatGPT and other platforms that we connect to, that is not just going to give you a response. There are just moments like that where there's a network issue or there's a downtime or something, and this GET request can fail you. That's why for a very big application, now when you're starting, it's good to start with this polling method. It's not bad. Everything I've taught you is valid. But over time, let's say you are growing, you have a lot of users, you do not want to use this method. Then impacted by scaling. Just like I said, this is impacted by scaling. The webhooks version is not. So if you start having a lot of users coming to your app and you are still calling this verified endpoints, right, through your secret key, at some point it can fail you. That's what I'm saying. So right now, when you're starting, you can start with this, but later you have to upgrade to this. That's why this video is very, very helpful. So you can read more about it. So polling requires making a GET request at regular intervals to get the final status of payment. For example, when a customer makes a payment for a transaction, you keep making a request for the transaction status until you get transaction status. With webhooks, the resource server, Paystack in this case, sends updates to your server. So whether it's Paystack or Flutterwave, Paystack or Flutterwave by themselves will tell you whether the event is successful or not. So instead of you asking Paystack, oh, is this transaction successful? As soon as you create a transaction, once you've done it, Paystack will tell you, a successful payment was made, at this time. They'll give you all the information that you need. This is way, way, way better. Now, not only Paystack does it, many other API platforms, they use webhooks to talk to your platform. But how do we set this up? Now, this is where it's a bit more technical. So just to go straight into the meat and bone of this conversation, we're going to go to a platform called Rowi, right? Because firstly, before we can work with webhooks, if we scroll down, we need something called a webhook URL, right? The same thing with Flutterwave too. A webhook URL is simply a post endpoint that a resource server sends updates to. So we just need a URL that Paystack can send messages to. All right. Now, let me show you the best way to get that URL for free, right? For any of your applications. And then if you want to add more apps to it, you have to pay. So go to Rowi, all right, and click on the first link that you get. Now, this platform is going to save your life when it comes to building apps with Flutterflow. It gives you a lot of superpowers, right? But for now, we're not really going to talk about all of that. We're just going to talk about the webhook side of things, all right? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to sign in. Now, for this to work, I just have to tell you, your Firebase account has to be on the Pro plan. So let me show you what I mean. So, Firebase. Let's go to firebase.google.com. I'm going to go to console and I am going to log into I'm coming. Which one will I use? Let me use this one. So your Firebase account has to be on the Pro plan, and you can see this is on the Pro plan currently. Now you have to add a card to the pay-as-you-go model so that you can actually work. Now, if you're in Nigeria, you'll find out that it's not easy for you to actually do this. You need to have a dollar card for this to work. All right. If you're anywhere else, you can easily be able to pay, I'm sure. But always use a dollar card if your normal cards are not working. All right. That's the best way to do. You can go to a bank, get a dollar card, and you'll be able to do this. Okay. So once you've done that, now you can go to Rowi. And now Rowi would allow you set up your application. Now there are videos on this, on how it works, but simply you can create a project. All right. I'm on a free version here, so I can actually create new projects. Let me see if I can actually use a different account to sign into Rowi. Probably. Let me see. Let me use this one. So let's check Rowi. And I'll click here. I'm going to sign in. Okay, guys, so I've already logged into Rowi. And before I go back to Rowi, let me just try and give you like a walkthrough of what Rowi is all about. I think I explained it earlier, but I still need to help you out for those who have never heard of Rowi before. Sorry. Now, Rowi basically is a low-code backend, right? It allows you to manage your database in a spreadsheet UI. Now, this might be a lot of information that you might not understand, but basically, if I go to Firebase right now, Firebase, and I sign into one of my accounts, you'll notice that for me, this is my own opinion, and I don't think it's only my own opinion. If not, Rowi will not be as popular as it is right now. But a lot of people, even no code developers and developers also, do not like the way Firebase working with it is to view your data in Firebase. It doesn't look so intuitive right now. This is how your data looks in Firebase, and I think it can be better, right? It can look better, it can be presented better, and that's where Rowi comes in. Rowi allows you to manage your data in an interface that is much more interesting, much more exciting to work with, etc. Then it can allow you to manage much more backend so powerful solutions like cloud functions, which I'm going to talk about in this video also, because cloud functions is needed for this particular step that we're going to make. But I'm going to show you something about cloud function that you can do in flutterflow that you will not have to write any code at all. For anybody that knows what cloud functions are, if you don't, I will take you through the entire step. That's why I said that is a more complicated step. Okay, so he said, anyways, on your own, you can read more about Rowi, but let's go into it. So I've signed into Rowi. They're asking me to create a workspace, and typically you can write whatever information you want to write. I'll just say next, just me, 2 to 5, for example. Database CMS. Just fill in whatever you want to fill in. So you can see an example of how you can represent your data from Firebase, which is so amazing. All right. But now, one of the exciting features that Rowi gives that I am more excited about than any other thing is the ability to create a webhook URL, right, for free, right? So let's try and do that right now as soon as we load up. So you have to create a project. You have to connect Rory to an existing project, probably a Firebase project or MongoDB or PostgreSQL, right? You give it a name, you connect it, or you can even create a new project from Rory, which you can also do in Flutterflow. But once you've gone through all those steps, you will see this. And right now, I've connected this account already called Bills. All right. Now, what will happen is that all your existing collections in Firebase would automatically be shown in Rory, and you can set them up. So when you set them up, you can easily be able to view the data the way you want it, do whatever you need to do, etc., which is really cool. But where I'm more focused on is how you can create the webhooks, right? So it's quite simple. First, just go to create a new table. All right, then you give a name to the collection. For this collection, we'll call it let's call it. Normally you can actually select from one of the existing collections, but we don't want that. So we can say create collection or use custom path. So we'll call this one Paystack lesson. So we know where we're coming from. Lesson, right? Add. Now display table name. All right. Just call it whatever you want to write, what you want to call it. This is just the unique name that you're going to be giving on for each document that you're working with. Then we can just say create. I'm sure we can just skip all that. We just want to create it quickly. So once we've done all of that, you can actually import data if you already have information about this collection. If you don't know anything about collections in Firebase, this will be hard for you to understand, but you can also comment down below and I will try and create a video on that later. But you can import data, you can do, or you can just add a column, and I'll choose to add a column here. And a column typically will represent a field of data, right? A particular field of data. That's what a column is going to represent. So for example, now maybe a column for API calling code here, or if we have something called users, it can be a column for the emails, right? The maybe all the users' emails or all the users' phone numbers. That's how it's going to be represented. It's represented in rows and columns like a spreadsheet. So basically, for example, now we can call this one just status, right? You can call it anything you want, and then you can represent that particular data in any field of it. Like you can represent it as a short text, URL, email. It's the same thing as when you're in Flutterflow. You go to Firebase and you try and create a collection. It's the same thing, right? Once you create a collection, for example, let me just write this random collection, and you say start from scratch. You add the name of the field you want, then you determine how you want to save it. But here you have more options, right? So that you can have a nice way of viewing your data, but that's not what we're talking about right now. You can do your own research. But for this one, I'm going to save it as a toggle, which is either true or false. Status is either true or false. So that's how I want to save it. And I'll just add it. Now we have an entire column. So anytime a new document is added here, a new document is added to that collection, we're going to see the status here. So add row. Add row means to maybe most times to create a new document or a new entry. All right. So if I do this, enter true, I should see in Firebase a new collection called Paystack lesson. I should see here. Yeah, so you can see I didn't have that before, Paystack lesson. So it's automatically updating Firebase with that information. So see, it created an automatic reference for me, ZZZZZZY, automatic. But this is how they created it for me. And then you can see status is equal to true. If I add more fields there, I'm going to see more information. So for every single, I can add another row, every single document you add, so you can see, this one is supposed to be true, I believe so. Every single document you add, so you see there's another one. This one is ZZZZX. All right. It has to be a unique reference so that you can know this document is ZZZZX. This one is ZZZZY. So you can easily be able to reference it and get information from it. But that's not what I talk about. You can see that, oh, I'm able to update it quickly here. Now, using the same power that Rory gives us, we are going to try and update. So once you've created so you have to, first thing you have to create a particular collection, a new collection that is not, you've not created before, right? Once you created that collection inside of Rory, you are going to go up here to webhooks, all right? And you're going to add a webhook. You choose basic, all right? Then they are going to give you a webhook with the name of that particular collection you just created. All right. So you can copy this webhook here, but first you can't enable verification for it. This you can't do that. Just go to so you can say option and you can write a function that determines if the webhook should be processed. Leave the function to always return true if you don't want it to write additional logic. So you can just leave it. Right. There are other ways in which you can do whatever they're talking about. Don't worry, I'll explain what's going on. Don't get too scared. Okay, I'm saying code. Let's just add the webhook URL right now. I'm coming. Trying to add it. Webhook endpoint is okay. So let's call it a name. We can call this Paystack lesson webhook. Add. So once we've added it, all right, we can copy the webhook. And what you need to do is, oh my God, sorry, I made a mistake. What are they saying? No, keep. Save and deploy. So we have deployed that webhook right now very easily. Then we're going to go to Paystack. All right. We're going to go to Paystack or Flutterwave. Flutterwave also has their own method too. We're going to go to Paystack. So I'm in Paystack here. I went to paystack.com. I signed in to my account. And if you want to know how I got here, this is a test version of my account. You just toggle to test. You go to settings. Once you go to settings, go to API and webhooks. You can see webhooks here. Then you can go and paste the link that Rory gave you in Paystack. Once you do this, any single time you make a transaction, right, and it's successful or it fails or transaction was reversed, they are going to update you. So let me give you an example of this. So let's go to webhooks first before we see another information. We can scroll down about it. Now, there's something I want to tell you here. I think both Paystack and Flutterwave, this is a technical thing though, but typically before you get when you get information from a webhook, it's always good for you to verify the origin of who sent you that webhook, because there are people that that's why you need to secure your link. This link, anybody can, right now the way it's set, anybody can send messages or information to it, right? Anybody that even knows anything about programming or how Paystack sends information can actually try and do as if they are paying you, and then send, if they have access to this link, right, and it is open, they can send malicious requests that they made a payment and try and scam you, right? So you need to be careful while working with this. Number one, secure your webhooks. Don't show it to everyone. This is just a test version. I'm going to delete it after this. That's one. Number two, you can try and study more about this securing your webhooks and everything. You can study more about it. Now, this is a more technical area. I'm not going to talk much about this, right? I think Flutterwave's version is much more simple. It's more simple than this method here, but it's easy. All you have to do is just read more about it and understand what they're talking about, right? Now, we're not going to go into this right now. Let us go into the meat and bone of it. Now, these are the kind of messages you can get from your webhooks automatically from Paystack. Now, for example, if a customer identification failed, they can send you a message automatically. If a customer identification was successful, dispute was created, dispute reminder, dispute resolved, invoice created, invoice failed, invoice updated, payment request pending. Right? Somebody asks for you to pay them, payment request successful, refund failed, refund pending, refund processed, and many more. But the one we want right now is transaction successful. When somebody makes a payment and it's successful, this is how it looks like. This is what we get. Then when a transaction, let's say a transfer is reversed, this is another thing I'm always concerned about. So if somebody is transferring money to an account, and I used this transaction or transfer feature in an app I'm going to teach on this my platform very soon, so just stay tuned and make sure you subscribe. So, but in case somebody transfers money and then money is reversed or something, you can also get information about that, right? Yeah, so these are all the things you can actually get in terms of events from Paystack. You can see all of them. Payment requests are pending. All these things are here. Transfer success, transfer failed, a transfer you attempted as failed, and so on and so forth. Now I'm going to tell you why this matters. But firstly, let's go over to to our API section and create a payment. So I'm going to go to Paystack payment, right? Let's see. Initialize transaction, response and test API call. So firstly, we'll check this our Paystack lesson. Let's reload the page a bit and check it. Paystack lesson. Only two documents are here, true and false. Now I'm going to delete this entire collection so that we can understand what's going on. And I'm going to go back to Paystack and also to our flutterflow website. It said currency not supported by merchant. Okay, sorry, I forgot. NGN. So I'm going to click on test API call, and now let's make a payment through this link. Okay, I think the last time it didn't work, so I'll just say 20. Sorry. Okay, 20,000. That should be like 200 naira, I believe so, if I'm not mistaken. So, or 20 naira. So I'm going to copy this link. I'm going to paste the link here, and I'm going to remove this, and I'll remove all of this. Enter this, and it's time to make a payment. So it's going to load up a bit, and once it's done, okay, this is 200 naira, sorry. Once it's done, we'll click on success and pay NGN, all right? So once we've made that payment, automatically, let's reload. We should see that Paystack lesson, a message was created, and it's really, really fast. Really, really fast. So you can see we just got the message from Paystack that this transaction was successful. So you can see charge.success, and the rest is history. Now, how does this help us in Flutterflow? How can this help us do things automatically in Flutterflow? Let me tell you, just wait. You're going to love this. But firstly, let us go over to Flutterflow, and let us add this same we can add this same line or the same name of the collection, right? You can add it in Flutterflow. So for example, you could click here and you could do something like this. You could still add it. Let me show you. You could come over to Flutterflow and add the name of that collection too. So let me just save. Okay, I've saved it. So you can add the name of that collection too. You can call it Paystack lesson. All right. And if you want to add or you want to access any of the fields here, you will need to write the name of that particular field in Flutterflow. That's how you're going to do. But we're not really going to use these fields, in Flutterflow yet. We're not going to do that. We're going to use something called cloud functions to do whatever we want it to do. So let me show you what we're going to do right now. We're going to create a collection called test transaction. And it's only going to have 3 fields. The first field is going to be the username, all right, that will be a string. Okay, second field is going to be email, that will also be a string. The third one is going to be reference, and I'll explain what I'm doing right now. That will also be a string. Then the final one will be status. Okay, amount. Okay, there are two more. Amount, that will be an integer. Final one is going to be status. That will be a boolean. That will be true or false. All right. So what we're going to do here is this. Once a user tries to make a payment, we're going to create a transaction record that shows, oh, this user just tried to make a payment here. So we can have it in Firebase, right? Now, what I'm going to tell you is, let's just talk about cloud functions right now. Okay, so what are cloud functions? Now, if you are just starting with Firebase and Flutterflow, you need to know that Flutterflow is limited. In one of the things that really limits Flutterflow is that and it's not just Flutterflow, it's Flutter, is the framework. It's a highly client-side language. And what does that mean? It means that typically, before actions happen, a user has to click a button, a user has to be on the page, a user has to be on the app before actions can happen automatically. Even for automatic actions like verifying transaction, that where we put a periodic timer up here to automatically check whether the transaction is successful. It's not automatic still, because the user has to be, the definition is just here, on page load. The user has to load the page for the action to work. Now, it is limiting because what if you want to integrate actions that while the user is sleeping, things are happening in the background, right? And there are many more things that you might want to do with it. Let's say you want to update 50 different records at the same time when one record has been created. There are many things you can use cloud functions to do. All right. Now let me go to Flutterflow's official documentation about cloud functions, and you can see more information about it. Cloud functions, Flutterflow. Now, cloud functions allow you to run backend code in response to events triggered by Firebase, right? Features and HTTP requests. For example, you might want to automatically send a welcome email to users when they sign up to your app, right? Now, let's say you want to do that because right now in Flutterflow, if you want to do that kind of thing where a user is signing up to your app, they have to click a button to sign up. Then while they are signing up in the action tree, you now occasionally add an API call to send an email. That is beautiful, but that's not perfect. You can still do better, as you're upgrading your skills as a no-code developer. All right. Now, let's go back to the documentation. He said, so we allow, so now Flutterflow actually has a feature here that they released recently, which I was praying for, when they were actually doing their unveiling recently. That was like some months ago, where they can allow you to write cloud functions instead of Flutterflow. The issue with cloud functions is that you must know JavaScript and TypeScript. And that was something I always use when I tell students that, at the end of the day, you must learn how to code, so you can do things like this. It will always put you off. It is annoying because, that no code fever would have to die out at that period of time. That, I can't actually do this. I must make my users click on a button before things can happen, right? And the final example I'm going to give you is, imagine there are some apps I've seen. There's a particular app that I saw, right? Send a message to your future self. All right. Now, this app, Future Me, allows you to write a letter right now. Once you write a letter right now, you can send it over and tell it the time you want the letter to arrive to you. Maybe 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years, 10 years from now. You could even choose a date, right? You could make it private, you could make it public. You could enter an email address and send the letter. All right, that's how it works. It is a really, really cool app. Now, for this app to work, it needs to handle the information automatically because once they click the button, that information has to be stored somewhere that at this so date, do this for me. Now, such a feature, you can't do it in Flutterflow without having something like Cloud Functions run it for you. These are things like this. You need to do things in the background. And now this is where you now start upgrading your skills. Like I said, for example, now also Flutterflow has linked you to Firebase because Cloud Function is a feature of Firebase, right? It's actually a feature here. If you come over here, you see something called functions. I think so. And basically you can deploy functions too. So you can say I have some functions that I've deployed here. You can deploy functions or some code that would run, right, any single time automatically, even while you sleep. That I'm trying to run it home for people who don't understand, who have never been exposed to these things. So these are things you can do, and it's an amazing thing, something you should aspire to do. And I'm telling you how you can do this without writing any code at all, which you have not heard of before, right? And this is one of the first time I'm talking about this, and I'll still talk about it in another class that I have on the bill payments app I'm going to be talking about soon. But you can see an example, right? You can do things automatically. You can come and read some interesting use cases here. There are a lot of interesting use cases here. A lot. So you see, so if for example a user uploads an image, the image is stored in storage. As soon as there's a new image stored in storage, the functions are triggered automatically. Functions start working, and what it does is it downloads image converts to thumbnail, right? Right location, upload thumbnail, then download thumbnail. I'm not sure what's this app for. You can take advantage of cloud functions to offload the Google Cloud resource intensive work, right? Running it on, instead of running it on your user's device, improving the responsiveness of your app. For instance, you could write a function to listen for images uploads to cloud storage, download the image to the instance, running the function, modify it, and then upload it back to cloud functions, right? To cloud storage, sorry. Your modifications could include resizing, cropping, or converting images. Call some. So for example, now, instead of having a lot of heavy load on the front end of your work, right? Where most times when you are doing all these things that users have to click a button, that's what you call client side. There's what you call client side and server side. Server side means back end, client side means front end. All right, that's what it means. So, for example, now once a user clicks on a button, automatically things start happening, but it's still on inside of the app. It's part of the app, right? But right now we want to do it on the server to make things much more easier. All right, we are going to be using Firebase's or Google Cloud servers for this work. So, like you can see, there's so many things you can do with it. Another example that they have here is GitHub, and if you're not code developer, you might not really flow with GitHub yet. But yeah, so these are you can come and read more information there. You can even ask ChatGPT and say, what are nice examples I can use cloud functions for? But right now, we're going to actually practice with cloud functions here. So we're going to skip all of this because Flutterflow also requires that you know how to write code in JavaScript or TypeScript before you can actually do it. See, they're even giving me all the code here. But what I did was, because I can't actually write code in JavaScript and TypeScript, and I have some courses on it, but I've not been able to learn because of I have had a lot of work. I have a lot of work to do. I've not really had time, and I really wanted to be able to start building cloud functions. So what did I do? Now, what I did was I trained a chatbot. So I'm going to go to playground, right? .openai.com. I trained a chatbot. Now, yeah, I'm also training a chatbot on custom actions, custom widgets too. That will be coming out soon, but I'm not sure when. But I was able to create a cloud functions helper that automatically allows you to write cloud functions without writing any code. It allows you to build cloud functions. Now, I have a particular now let me say this here. This is an assistant playground section of OpenAI. It allows you to automatically upload files, right? It allows you to also write an entire script to instruct your assistant on what to do. And I uploaded a lot of data here of past conversations I've had with ChatGPT about building cloud functions that would work for flutterflow. If you go and just write build a cloud functions on ChatGPT 10 out of 10 times, if you don't know what you're doing and you can't paste it here, it's not going to deploy to, it's not going to work. I tried it, it didn't work, right? So I had to tell it specifically how it should work, what and what it should look at. Make sure that it also logs in errors. So if there's any error, for me to be able to debug it well without having any coding knowledge of JavaScript or TypeScript. I wanted to be free from all that stress. And this is what I did here. And you can also do it too. You can try and take documentation from Flutterflow on their cloud function section. You can even take things like, because right now they also say to avoid deployment errors, do not call admin does initialize app. This is something that Flutterflow automatically does. Now you don't need to know what this is. You can also try and instruct it. Do not do this also. Once you put instructions like this into your chat, so look at this is it here, playground slash platform.openai.com. So come to OpenAI, not ChatGPT. OpenAI, you can even use ChatGPT too. You can try. Come to OpenAI, right? Create an assistant. You can check more information about it online and post all the information about the documentation about cloud functions there and try and chat with it. It will take some time. Then you enable code interpreter, right? It will take some time for it to understand what you're saying and what you're doing. But then the trick is that you should stick to one conversation thread. So if I say hello, all right, it runs a script. It's not a normal ChatGPT. It runs a script that checks whatever you've uploaded, whatever file you've uploaded, and whatever instructions you've given it. It runs those scripts, which is, it can be heavy. Sometimes it can also impact how much you have to pay, because if you check, let me show you something. Usage. When I was trying to train the chatbot on building custom widgets, I it went up to 20 something dollars within a day. Almost, I think, $18 that day. That was 12th of December. So, but normally when I was using for cloud functions alone, it was not expensive at all. It was like $1, $1. I wasn't spending much at all. So you have to put your card for it to work with it. It was just like $1. It wasn't expensive at all. But the day I was working with custom widget, because I was uploading a lot of code, a lot of information, it shot up, and I'm meant to pay this at the end of the month. So you have to be careful with that when you're working with this. But this one is very, very light. It's very easy. All right, very easy. So once you click on code interpreter, you can start chatting with it, keep training it until it's what you want. Now, this is one thread. Now, once you like the particular thread that you're working with, so you can save your information, you can just copy the link and then maybe paste it in your notepad. All right. So anytime you want to come back to it, click on it, it will take you to that chat thread, and you can continue chatting with it. Now, why do you need to have one chat thread and not a new assistant thread again and again? Because the more you chat with the assistant, the more it understands and learns more about you, right? It's more powerful than the normal ChatGPT, in my own opinion. That's why it can also impact the cost sometimes if you have a lot of data and it keeps going up and down, right? So if you feel like the amount of messages you have here is too much, you can copy all the messages and go and paste it in the instructions. So you can say, oh, this is my past history with you, and this is all the corrections I gave you. Paste it there, and that's the way you did. You'll be able to create your own assistant, which is cool. Now, if you want access to my own assistant that I spent time creating, I spent hours creating already, so you can build cloud functions with no code. You can check my Patron community, right? You subscribe to Patron and you'll be able to have access to it. Or you can contact me, I can build it for you. I'll charge $50 to build it, and then I'll teach you exactly how to do it within 1 hour. That would be cool. Okay, so let's continue. Now, let me go to my own thread, the thread I was working with before, because that thread is smarter than a new thread. It already understands more than opening up a new thread. So let me see if I can find that note coming. Yeah. As you can see, I have a bunch of things I've gone back and forth with it, and it spills out perfect cloud functions. I can copy and paste in Flutterflow, and I talk to it like I'm a child, and it teaches me things up to the point I'm able to understand, a bit of JavaScript and TypeScript without having to go to any class at all, just chatting with the chat, but I'm building powerful solutions at the same time. All right, so let's jump into it. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to write a script, right, in Cloud Functions that is going to do something for me. So let me show you what's going to happen. Now, one of the things that we need to note is that Cloud Functions can execute based on different methods. There are different methods you can make a Cloud Function run automatically without having anything happen. But one of the most basic methods are on create, on update, and on delete. So what does this mean? Now let's talk about on create. It applies to the same for other methods too. So what this means is that any single time a document is created, you have to specify the document you want, right? Any single time any document is created in Firebase, in your Fire store, in your database, in your back end, right? You can make the Cloud Functions run. You can make it do something. You can make it perform in a certain way. That's what it does. That's how it works. So if you're following me, what I want to do here is I want to monitor this Paystack lesson. This is what we're using as our example. And because of Rowi, any single time a successful payment comes in, right, we're going to check this charge.success section. Let me show you. So if you go to Webhooks, you see that charge.success is when a successful charge was made. So they're telling us how we can know. So anytime there's a new Paystack lesson document is created, and that Paystack lesson document has charge.success, then we can search different fields here. For example, how much was paid. We can search things like that. And once we search all those things, we can now create a new or update an existing test transaction document automatically. So instead of us, maybe when somebody pays by ourselves, we'll be checking manually to check whether the payment was made, and then we'll now update our transaction document that status is true. We can do it via Cloud Functions automatically. So we'll just be checking, and once the payment has been made automatically by itself, we're going to update that status to true. So let's test it out right now. So what we're going to do right now, we need to know exactly what we want. So using my Cloud Functions builder, what I'm going to say is that I'm going to describe to it very clearly what I want. So on document, so this is something I will teach you. If you want to hire me to build these Cloud Functions for you, it's $50. In 1 hour, I'm going to take you through the training of how to actually do this yourself. So yeah, you can contact me down below. My number is down below. So on document creation, right? On document creation of you can say this in anyhow. There's no method to it. Just make sure you describe it well. So on document creation of Paystack lesson, or I can make it more simpler, right? So you can understand when a new, I'll put it in brackets. Always good to put it in brackets so you can know the exact name. When a new Paystack, so I'll remove this section. When a new Paystack lesson document is created, right? Search now this is where it gets technical a bit, right? This is where it gets technical. So let's break it down. Okay, so when I'm talking about technicality right now, let's look at this data field here, what we're getting here. Now, if you look at a section or a document like this one, for example, let's say this one, top up purchases, right? Or let's say users, for example. You see, it's straightforward. We have balance, we have email, we have phone number, we have UID. Simple fields, very simple. So if we want to update balance, we just have to update balance. If we want to update email, we have to update email. It's really simple. But in flutterflow or in Firebase, there's a much more unique way of storing data, right? Especially when you're dealing with JSON. And that way, let me show you an example. Paystack lesson. This is a method, right? And that method is where you have a field, and that field can have, and like more information inside of it. That's the best way I can say it. It's called a map. See, this is an example. It's called a map. Now, for those who work with Flutterflow a lot, that method of storing data will be called a data type. And if you don't understand it, maybe later you can ask questions down below and I'll try and explain it. But basically, it's a way of, for example, now we can say, if I wanted to represent this section here called authorization in Flutterflow, what I would do is, that means I have more information down below, all embedded in one field, right? The way I was going to build it was let's just call this AU auto. It means authorization, and then it can have things like card name. What are the things that we saw here? We saw account name, bank, bin, brand, all those things, right? So I'm just going to say card. Okay, I saw account name. This will be a string. That will be like that's text. You can actually add default values, something that Flutterflow recently did. Oh, Flutterflow is amazing, guys. They are always innovative. So we can also have something like bank, all those information. So you can store all this information here, and then when you come over to Flutterflow, you can just add a section called authorization and then connect it to a data type called auth. All right. Now let's go to manage content and test something out. Now in this manage content, we're going to add some new values. So let's wait for it to load. Now before this thing is done with loading, always note that when you add a new collection in Flutterflow, you need to deploy rules, Firestore rules for it, and this tells Flutterflow who can have access to the data, who can delete it. I'm going to say everyone for now, and I'm going to deploy these rules right now. And yeah, that's it. So once I'm done with that, I can come back here and I can actually create a new test transaction document. So the first thing is going to be username, Ben, email will be ben@mail.com. Ref ID will be a random string, right? Amount will be 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Status will be false. Authorization, let's set the fields. Account name will be Ben. So you can see fields within a field, right? Bank will be Zenith. That will be the name of the bank. So you see field within a field. So these fields are within authorization. And that's how you can manage it in Flutterflow. So once we do that, you see that in Firebase here, all right, let's try and reload. In Firebase here, we have something called test transaction under Paystack lesson, and you can see we have something called authorization, which is a map field automatically made, Zenith account name. So that's the way it works. So now to be able to get information from if I close it, from a structure like this, how do we do it? Because they're not straightforward fields. It's not just called bank or whatever. It's under a particular field. Now to be able to do that, we are going to employ this rule of, let me show you the rule here, to what we need to do with cloud function. So basically all we're going to say is we want to get information from authorization dot, then we talk about the other name that we're following to update. So let's play around with this Paystack lesson, right? So I'll show you what I mean. So right now we want to check for this event section to check what the event is saying, whether it's charge.success. All right, that's the first thing we need to check, because Paystack told us that is a constant thing that will always tell us that, oh, there was a successful payment. All right, so to know what we're actually getting, we can we can close down these fields here. We can even close down this top field. You can see that this top field, this charge.success, is not under this field here. You can see that all those things you are seeing was under this one field here called data. All right, so we can easily just go and say check. So we can say check the. Let's make sure we copy the exact name. So we can click on the pencil icon. Right? Click on the pencil icon and say check the event field. Right? You can call it data field in the document if it is equal to, then we'll put open brackets because it's case sensitive. The name has to be the same. So let's copy what we see here. Charge.success. And if it is, then the next important thing that we need right now is the reference. Now, in your own, there might be other things you need access to. For example, you might need to know more about the customer. You might need to get information about the IP address. Whatever you want, that's your business, right? So once we know that the successful charge, the next thing I think I need is just going to be the reference. So let's check for where we can find reference. So channel, authorization, signature, country code, channel, card, currency. So these are things you can actually save. But what I'm looking for, all right, is the reference. So here's the reference here. Now, where is the reference? The reference is under plan. Okay, it's not under plan. Let me see. Let's try and elapse all these things here. Customer, there's no reference there. Let's see. Let's elapse that. Let's elapse this to So reference looks like is directly under data. Because if I close data, I will not see reference again. It's directly under data. That's where reference is. Now, another trick you can also use is that you can also go over to let's see, Paystack, and you can copy if I go to transaction successful, they're already giving me a way in which it's supposed to look. It's the same thing that is being sent to you, right? And if you want quick details, you can copy everything you're seeing here, go to ChatGPT, all right, and say, find the path to the reference field here. So you can use it to find complicated paths to easily tell you what you're looking for. So you can see, I'm still waiting for it to load up. So you can see data reference. All right. So that's how it works. So the way you can reference it for the cloud function to be built is, and if it is equal to that, right, then search the data field in the document, right? So let's see. Now what I'll do, I want to copy all the words correctly. So it's going to be data. Let me just copy this. So instead of this, sign here, we're going to say data.reference. All right. Now, once we do that and use the value from, so let me tell you what I want to do. The way I'm going to build my own, and you can build it that same way too, is remember, when a payment is made, I am going to create. So let me show you how I'm going to make my own. So instead of all of these things here, I'm going to go to navigate to the verified transaction page inside of my app as normal. with the ref ID. Just now, I don't even need the ref ID though, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another action. So once the transaction is successful, the API call is successful, all right, I'm going to create a new document. That document is going to be the transaction. This will be the transaction. All right. I'm going to add some fields about the payment. So status, this authorization was testing, I was playing around. So status will be equal to false. Amount, right, would be, let's say from variable, okay, we're not working with amount here. I think, okay, we actually have an amount field here. So let me just go to widget state amount. Then the email would be widget state email. Then username, I don't think that's necessary, but I'm just going to say name.com, whatever. All right. So once we've done all of this, this will represent a new transaction, but it is false. All right. It is false in our application. Now, what I'm going to do is there's also going to be a field for ref ID. I think I added a field for that. Let me try and see. I didn't add that. So let's go back to the document. So let me delete this. That'll be a string. Okay. We already have his ref ID here. And why didn't I find it earlier? Okay. So I don't know why I didn't find that earlier. So we're going to check ref ID. I think we already have that. Okay, it's up here already. So the ref ID is going to be from the API call. So whatever the API call generates as a reference, I'm going to save it in this document here. All right. So we're going to go over to action output, API response options, JSON body, JSON path, and then the path is going to be the ref ID. So we have username, email, ref ID, amount, and status. Okay, that's cool. So what will happen here is that we're now going to navigate to this other page. But while we navigate to the other page, we don't need to do any other thing. The ones user is on this page. So let me go to this other page now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove, while you're building, you can remove this entire step. Right? And I'll tell you what you're going to do here, right? There's nothing else you need to do. You don't even need all this extra information because it's all going to happen automatically. So let me just show you in the background what you're going to do. And in your mind, you can think of anything you want to do to send the user back to another page or whatever. But for now, let's just check this. So what we'll do is this. We can, let's copy. Okay, we don't need to copy anything here. Let's go back here. And we'll say so, and use the value from let me copy this. Exactly. Data dot reference to query, that's to search. So there are a lot of things you can do in Firestore for you. To query D, all right? Now let's go over to this section here. We're going to search the test transaction, collection. That should be the same name. To query the test transaction collection for a document with, and let's check, ref ID. This is the exact field. Ref ID with, so I'm going to put it in brackets because it's case sensitive. Nothing should change here. ref ID equal to data.reference, right? And update the, so let's see. I want to get the exact same word. Status, update the status, right? Data field. Always, we want to be very, very clear of the what's the document again? Of the test transaction, document to true. Okay, so this is how you write it. Like I said, if I'm going to set this up for you, I'll teach you exactly how to do it and make it very easy. So this is all we want to do. We want to check whether there is a new charge transaction, and once there is one, and the charge transaction that comes in that is successful has a reference that is equal to the test transaction document that was just created that belongs to another user, it's automatically updated to true. That means, the payment was successful. And the other things you can do, you can also update many documents. You can update more than 20 or 30 documents at the same time, right? You can, for example, now in this app, the payments app that I was working on, once a payment has been successful, I automatically, with Cloud Functions, to update the user's balance, right? The user has a balance where they pay for different things. It's automatically done with Cloud Functions, all right? But this is just a simple example. Now let's run the script and the instruction, and let's see what ChatGPT comes up with. Now, while that is loading, remember, you need a paid account on Firebase. It's pay as you go. You don't have to, they're not going to charge you anything. You need to wait to come to this step at all. And once you do that, you'll be able to deploy this script on flutterflow. So I'm still waiting for it to finish loading. It's taking some time. Okay, so my assistant has created the function for me. Right, I'm seeing that down here below. It's saying it's telling me exactly what the function will do. When the document is created in the Paystack lesson collection, the function is triggered. It reads the event field, right? If the event is equal to exactly what I wanted to do. So say remember to deploy this function to your Firebase project. We don't need to follow this step. Also, ensure you have the right access permissions to test transaction collection in your Firestore security. So it's even giving more information, which is based on the instruction that I gave it, that make sure that your Firebase, when you're going to your security rules, that it's actually open. If not, the cloud function will not be able to do anything on it, right? It's open. It's reasonably open. So let's go back to the playground. Let's check it out. So you see, and ensure you have the right access permissions to test transaction. So you can see, now this is the code that we want. We'll copy everything that we have here. And without any problem at all, we can go to the cloud function section in Flutterflow, and then we can paste the new cloud functions there. We can even, delete everything that was here before. You come in. You can delete everything that was there, and then paste it. So once we paste this, the name that was here too, right? The name that our assistant gave us, or you can change the name. We have to paste that name here. Okay. Update. So once we do that, we can save the cloud function, then we can deploy. So we just click on deploy. So this is on transaction success, update transaction status on charge success. So it's deploying. It's going to deploy to our Firebase accounts, right? So let's see if there's any name like that before on. So let's see. Update top up purchase status, nothing like that. So let's wait and see whether it's going to be successful. So it's saying error. Definitely it cannot be an error. So most times it will do that. Just click on it again. Let's see. Okay, guys, with absolutely no code at all, this is something I built and I'm so excited about it. I was thinking of maybe like putting it out where people can subscribe to be doing using this feature, but it's something that anybody can just train their chatbot and do. So if you choose to do it yourself, good, like all the best to you. If you want me to build it for you, the same way I designed it is free. You don't have to pay in anything except when you're using it for a long period of time. Then probably you need to subscribe like $5 per month, to your OpenAI organization dashboard, right? And it's very simple. That's it. So you can see it has deployed. Now let's test it, which is this. I'm happy about this. Now we can go back to over here, over to the function section here. And I'm going to have a much more detailed video on functions. So you can see update transaction status on charge. It has been deployed. I'll have a much more detailed video on functions and teach you exactly how to work with it, even how to debug it if there's any error, or how to do it. All right. So let's go back. Let's now test this feature to make sure it's working. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to make it more. I'm not going to go to my phone to test it out. I'm going to create. Okay, let's go over here. I'm going to go to Firestore. Now we are going to mimic if a user has clicked a button to make a payment. All right. So what will happen here is that once a user makes a payment, we need to store the new reference of that payment that was made over here. So we can make it really quick for ourselves. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the API section, and we're going to go over to initialize transaction, response and test, and we are going to create a new transaction. So test API call. So once we test it, it should return a reference for us and a link. So before we even make a payment, that means the payment has not been successful yet. We're just going to copy this reference here, go over to Firebase, and then paste it here. So this is what's supposed to happen on our app when somebody clicks on a button and tries to pay. Automatically, the reference should be updated like this. Now, once it's updated, what we are going to do, so you can see right now the status is false, right? We are not touching anything. So I'm going to go over here, and we're going to copy the link that we have over here. Sorry, this link. And we'll come over here, and we would paste it. We're going to delete this, and sorry, I'm going to delete all of this. Enter. Now, so this is going to mimic. So let's say a user right now is paying on your app. They click on pay 200 naira. Once the payment is made, this is what is going to happen. So let's watch this. Watch out for it. It should update to true. So you see, it just updated to true automatically. Boom! Now you've leveled up your skills as a no-code developer here. Automatically, you did not have to do it manually at all. Automatically happened. So what they did was, as soon as a new Paystack lesson document was created, so you can see that a new one was just created right now, right? And it was equal to charge.success, a function just triggered. So this is the function section. You can see that it was just used just now. There was just a request that was just done right now. And you can actually view the logs so that's something I'm going to teach you in that Cloud Functions video. But yeah, you can see that it's automatic. Now, this is a much more advanced method. Now, instead of you trying to do API calls per second, while the user is on this page, it takes few seconds to do that. You can just you could still even do something where maybe it keeps checking whether transaction status is equal to true, or you can display a pop-up once the transaction status is equal to true. So maybe you will be doing a read to that. You can pass the reference of that particular transaction document that was created. Sorry, you can pass the reference of it to this page. Then you can do a read on the page and be checking for when the status is equal to true. And once it's equal to true, you can show a pop-up that your payment is successful. You can take them to another page. Whatever you want to do, it's all up to you. You could even take them to a page and say, oh, your transaction is pending, right? Come back later or something, or we'll update you once it's done. And that's the cool thing about Cloud Functions. The user can be doing something else, and once the payment is successful, you could also tell this Cloud Functions helper to also send an email to your user. So as soon as the message was done or it was successful, you could also send an email, thank you for purchasing this thing, automatically. I wish you can read my lips right now. That is wonderful. So that's the last method, but there's more things to it. Right, you can ask your questions below. There's more things to it, but yeah, you can receive payments and do so. Now you're on your own. You can write more information about all the different types of events that you have, whether it was refunded, whatever, and then build upon it. Right, these are the keywords. Now, in the next video, I'm going to show you how you can work with Flutterwave briefly, but the methods I taught about Paystack, you can also take it over to Flutterwave and still work with it successfully. Okay, guys, so this is a quick overview of Flutterwave, their dashboard, right? And let's take a look at it quickly. So if you go over to settings, you have a section for API keys and webhooks. So if you go over to API keys, you will see your live API keys and your test API keys. So basically the secret key section is where you can actually have access to it. So if I click on generate new API keys, I'll be able to copy the new secret key. And for test API keys too, I can also get the secret keys for the test API key. So I can always generate a new key and to give me a new key to, so just for security reasons. But once you copy it, you can take it over to flutterflow to do what you need to do. All right. Now you can also see that webhooks too. You also have a section for webhooks, so you can add a webhook URL based on the teaching I just gave you in the last session. So let's go straight to the documentation of the Flutterwave. So you want to click on documentation of Flutterwave, you'll be taken to this section where you can start from the beginning. So you can start reading and understanding how Flutterwave works, right? So firstly, we're going to go to quick start, and you see you have to create an account. You see all the information from them, the different types of payment options that they have, and so on and so forth. All right. Now we are going to go to authentication, just like Paystack. You can see that it's the same thing. So they're talking about the test version and the live mode. So you're seeing how authentication works. So you have to do authorization, bearer, then your secret key. Then this is the link you actually make like you call the URL you actually call to make Flutterwave work. So you can see they also have a brief conversation about webhooks. These are the kind of transactions that will be sent to your URL. So if you follow the same method I taught you in Paystack, you'll be able to work with Flutterwave really easy, easily, right? So let's go to the main menu, API reference. So this is where we see more information. So when you go to the API section, you can see more information about how to work with Paystack, right? So firstly, we'll go to charge, and charge. There are a couple of methods that you can use when you're working with Paystack. There is the card. Most methods. There are two methods I taught you under manual method in Paystack. All these methods like cards, bank transfers, all these methods here won't work with those first two methods. These methods, you have to use, cloud functions and webhooks to get responses. Now you can read more information about that. I'm not going to be working with, I'm not going to be working with that, right? In this, but if you read the documentation, you'll be able to work with it and get information from it. This video should help you start that journey, right? But what we're going to check for is something called standard, I'm coming, standard, Flutterwave standard. Now, Flutterwave standard is an easier way to work with Flutterwave instead of having to inbuild. Remember, if you check the different ways in which Flutterwave you can accept payments in Flutterwave. So if we go back to the home and we go to quick start, or let's go to collect payment. Let's go to collecting payments. Now, there are different ways you can collect payments. You can collect payments Flutterwave inline. This is for websites, right? You have to have it. It has a JavaScript library. That's not part of what we're trying to do. They have direct charge. Now, direct charge falls under those cards that we're saying. Let me duplicate this page here. So if we go over here and go to API reference and we go to charge, you can see things like cards, you can see things like bank transfers. That can fall under direct charge. It means you have to build your own UI and payment flow for how it's going to work. But this is going to be powering it, and you still have to use webhooks to be able to update your database when the payment is successful or not. For example, bank transfers, it's better to use webhooks to actually find out when a bank transfer is successful, because it can be it can be reversed, things like that. But when it comes to Flutterwave standard, Flutterwave, you can call on their API. So if you read a bit about it, say call on their API on your server and get a payment link, which is what we worked with in Paystack, and then redirect the customer to that link, and then we'll redirect back to you when your payment is done. So we can click on Flutterwave standard if we're interested in that, and you can see information. So first, you will need to assemble the payment details, right? That you will need. So first thing you need is TXRef. That's a reference code you will generate to identify the transaction. So in Flutterwave, you must send them your own unique reference code. Paystack you can send it, or Paystack will generate it for you. But this one, you must send them your own unique payment code, amount, currency, redirect URL. Just like Paystack, they also require a URL that you can redirect users to in case a payment was successful or not. So you can see that there are similarities here. So if we scroll down here, let's scroll down. So this is the link. This is where they'll be directed to after payment. So you can scroll down here, you can see more information over here. But this is not the API section where we're going to see how to make that work. So let's just scroll a bit. So let's see where that feature is over here. So let's see that over here. So you can see from your server, call our create payment endpoints. I think let's check this one. We should find it here. Create payment endpoint. Okay, let's just use this example here to work with it, because I think this is a document. This is actually a document I worked with. So this is the link that we can call to api.flutterwave.com, and then you have to put the header, you have to put your secret key here, and then this is the JSON body that you're sending to Paystack, to Flutterwave, sorry, to Flutterwave, and then you can get a response like this from them, which is status success, hosted link, and then this is the link. That's how it works. Then this is the page that they'll be directed to. Now you can also add more information inside, but let's see. Let's play around with it. So let me click on or copy this, the URL, and we're going to go over to our app. Click here, click on API call, and then we're going to paste the link here. And let's even create a group, because we might want to do other things. Create API group. Let's just paste the base URL. I think this should be the base URL here. Delete that. This will be Flutterwave. Sorry, Flutterwave. And then we're going to create the first header. That header is going to be, so I'm going to go over here. Now remember, you can also copy and paste into ChatGPT as you're reading to explain things for you. So I'm just going to copy from here, and then we're going to go over here. Go over here. I'm going to paste it here, and then we'll remove this section here. We know that that's where the API key needs to be in. All right. And what we'll do next is we'll just put this, say API key. All right. Then we'll say group variables, copy, paste here, string, add group. Come under here. We'll say create payment. This is the links that we need to work with. So we'll just come over here and copy this version here, v3 payments. So we'll come over here, and then we'll paste this v3 payment, and we'll go to query parameter. So it's not query parameter. This is actually, so let's check what kind of call is this, right? So let's see if there's any kind of information here that tells us what type of call this is, because I already know what type of call it is, but let's see if there's any information. So so you can see got.post. So this is a post call. Like I said, you can also ask ChatGPT to explain this to you and give you more information, just in case, because it's not looking the same way that Paystack's own looked, right? And it might not be so simple for you. It might look so complicated, but it's very simple once you break it down. It's the same method. So I can just copy this section here and paste it here. This is obviously a post call. Also, because we're creating something new, we know it's supposed to be post. So we'll click on JSON. Now, what we need to do right now is we need to just copy this entire thing here. All right. And then paste it here. Format it. Okay, it's telling us that there's an error in formatting. Okay, I was supposed to copy it with, I made a mistake. So that's the entire body that we need. It's still giving us errors. What I will do is simple. I'm just going to go to ChatGPT and say, format this to JSON, and I'll just paste it. It's help me format it quickly. Then I'll just copy it. Then I'll take it over here and delete this, paste this, format, and we're done. Now, it's not everything that we're going to need, right? For example, now this meta, customer ID, consumer mark, all this information is not necessary. I'm very sure it's not necessary. You can keep testing so you can find out exactly what is necessary. But I think, for example, this information about customer should be important. For example, now we have customer email, customer phone number, customer name, then customizations. I don't think we need all of these things. You can even send a logo, the image of the logo that should show when they're actually making payments, which is really, really cool. You can even customize the title of the page that is being shown. I think that is really cool from Flutterwave. That's really, really cool. Now on your own, you can explore all those things later when you feel more comfortable to explore them. But for now, what I'll do is I'm just going to copy this section and then I'll format it here. Copy. I'll take it over here. Format. Awesome. Now that I've done that, it's time to start filling out the gaps. So you can see you can change currency if you want. So I can come here over here. If you are not in Nigeria, you're somewhere else, you can just come over here and then create a currency field. All right, that will be string, right? Then you can drag the currency field over here and then delete the engine. Oh my God. And then delete the engine. Okay. Then you can also add something for redirect URL. Then this will be a string too. Then we can also add something for customer name. You can call it whatever you want. All right. String. And that thing will be customer email. Then customer phone. What else do we need? Let me see. I think that's it. So let me just go for customer name. And then customer phone number. String body. Then email. Then we have redirect URL. can call it redirect. Now, the thing about this redirect URL is that if the user does not make a payment, they cancel their payment on the web section, or it's successful, they will still send them back to your site. All right. So that's something you need to take note of. So let me just drag the redirect URL here. So you see the way we're creating it. Then the transaction reference, if you don't send transaction reference, Flutterwave's API call will not work. They don't generate it for you. They don't do what Paystack does. So you need to generate your own transaction reference yourself. So obviously you write I'll call it ref ID instead. You can call it anything you want. So I'm going to drag the ref ID here. And like that, we've configured everything that we need to configure. So we can add the API call and we can come and test it. But before we test it, I think we have a bunch of things to add here. So what I'll do, I'm going to go to my dashboard. Am I still active there? Okay, thank God. So I'm going to copy this secret key here, and I'm going to paste it in the API key here. Now, once I paste it there, I'm going to go to ref ID. And the ref ID I'm going to generate will be random numbers like this. It's just a random string of characters. It should never be the same thing. So redirect URL will be www. Let me just copy what we did last time. chat.openai.com. Copy this. And then we'll come over here. Sorry. So, and then we'll paste it here. Then customer phone number 00000. Random string of characters. Then the email is not really that important in Flutterwave like it is in Paystack. user@mail.com. Then redirect URL. Okay, I think how many times did I actually add the redirect URL? I'm seeing it 2 times. So what I will do is, let me see. I think I added it twice. Redirect URL. Which one did I use at the end of the day? So let me try and see. Redirect URL, capital letter. Let me just remove this one. So yeah, that's it. So let's go back to response and test. Customer name is Benny. Currency is NGN. So I'm going to test the API call. Let's see. Yeah, so it's successful. Now you can come over here and add the sections that you need, just like Paystack, as we taught earlier. All right. Then let's see something. If we try and make a payment, what happens? So from this link here, let's say that I paste the link here and I remove this section here, and I also remove this section here too, and I load it up. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we've opened up the payment link for this thing for Flutterwave, and you can. I think this is a test version, so we can just click any bank here randomly, pay 100 naira, and you say I've completed this payment, and it should complete it. So once the payment has been completed, they should direct us back to ChatGPT. And the same way you structure the link in Paystack, you can also structure the link for the redirect URL. Awesome. Beautiful. So you can see, even they also send us information about, let's copy what they send us here. They send us information about 2 things: the reference and then the transaction ID. And there's a reason why they send 2 different things in their own in their own documentation. There's a reason why they send 2 different things. Let me show you why. Because there is an endpoint that is very, very unique that you use to verify transactions. So this is it here. Now, I don't know why the main information that I wanted to get, it took me a while to get it. I don't know why they just added it here. So verifying transaction with transaction reference. So you can verify with reference or you can verify with ID. Those are 2 different things you can verify. That's why they're sending you both the ID of the transaction and the reference. So I think the ID is what they generate by themselves. The reference is what you generate by yourself. So I personally prefer, because we are the ones that have to generate that reference by ourselves. I prefer that we use this verifying this section here, this endpoint here to verify it. So let me show you how you can do it. So firstly, we'll copy this link here. I'll go over to flutterflow. I'm going to save this one here. Then I'm going to say verify payment, verify payment. All right. Then I'm going to that link. I think that link different. Let's see how different it is from this one. So we have the api.flutterwave.com. Cool. Then we can just delete this section here, and then we'll add this. Once we add that, so we say verify by reference. All right. So I think there's something else I'm supposed to do. So let's check. That's what I was saying, that it was so weird the way they just added it there. They didn't really give anybody much information about what they're trying to do, like a test or something, or the unexpected return value. They just added it here. You understand? So but if you understand, if you follow this guy, you'll be able to get what I'm trying. You'll be able to get how to do it. So it's just a get call, a get request, and then you'll be passing the TRXREF as a reference, as a parameter. All right. But you see that they did not make any part of this link a parameter, because normally if the link was supposed to be a parameter, at least you might see this icon here that you know, oh, it's supposed to be a parameter. All right. So let's try and do it ourselves. Let me show you what they want you to do. So I'm going to copy this section here, and to send a parameter in the call. So to send a parameter in the call, what we'll do is we're going to go to query parameters like normal. Come over to this place here. We'll add the TRXWF. We don't have to add anything here in this case. All right, they did not ask us to add anything here. So go to from variable, we'll go to add new variable. Then we'll come over here and add it as a string, and then we'll come over to response and test. And we're going to actually test with something here. Now the thing about this endpoint, in my own opinion, I've played around with it a bit, because it took me a while to actually find it. It was not easy to find it. It was just in one position, but one thing about it is that if the payment has not been made, unlike Paystack, it won't give you information about it. It will just give you an error. That's the thing. If the payment has not, it can only return a value back when the payment has been made. That's the thing about it. So let me give an example here, which I don't really like, because Paystack, if you actually create a payment, right, and you passed a reference, even if the user has not made that payment, you can still verify and check whether the user has paid or not. But Flutterwave's own will not give you anything with this verified payment. I tried it, unless I'm wrong. If I stand to be corrected, yeah, here. All right, so let me give an example here. So let me create a random a random reference. That reference is going to be 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, 7 9. All right, let's just copy this reference here, and we'll create a payment. So we're going to do a test call here. We'll create a payment. So firstly, let's just copy this link and then keep it somewhere. Let's just keep it somewhere here. Let's just keep it there. Delete that, and then we'll delete this. So while that is loading, we'll go back to flutterflow, and we are going to copy this reference and go over to verify payment. Now, unless if this he wants to have a change of heart while I'm doing this live training, that would be cool. But let's test the API call. You see, it should not give us any response. So you see error, no transaction was found for this ID. So it only records the transaction once the payment was successful. That's the way they do it here. So if you come over here, it's only when a user has made a payment that it will now show successful. So let me show you an example. That's the only thing you need to know about it. So if you want to collect information from this endpoint, you can click on this error or maybe this message, and if it is equal to error, status is equal to error, then you know that, okay, maybe the user has not made any payment at all. So you can make your own judgment with that. So I'm just going to click on status and I'll paste it here. All right. Now let's see if we can make a payment. Access Bank, pay 100. I've completed this payment. Loading, loading, loading. Thank you for your payment. It's successful now. So once I come over here, right, and I test the API call, successful, awesome. Transaction fetched successfully. So we can see that the status is now equal to success instead of error. So you can just use this to check. So if the status is equal to success, you know that the payment was done successfully. Then you can get the information from any other thing you want to get, and do whatever you need to do in your application, or deliver the goods or service you're meant to deliver. It's really simple. So it's the same method for Paystack. You can do the same method of checking a periodic action to check the verified transaction endpoint, right? After sending a unique link, right? You can still send them to a page inside of the app with that same payment link, and then keep checking the verify endpoint until it's successful. The same thing, you can see that right now. And then if you want to use cloud functions, you can go over to their let's go home. You can go over to the webhooks section. I think quick start. I'm not sure. Yeah, webhooks. You can go over to the webhooks, and then you can read more information about the webhooks. You can see the pictures. They're adding pictures here, implementing a webhook. And now their own way of verifying their webhook that is coming from them is that they, in their webhooks message, they can send a verif hash that you can check for it. So these are things that you can actually use. So if you need more help with this is more technical, you can actually shoot a message to me, and I can easily help you out with that, right? I do charge for services like that. We just know that. But yeah, I can easily do that for you. Or on your own, you can, when they say verif hash, inside of the return message you're going to get in the webhook, there will be something called verif hash. So you can tell your AI assistant that you're going to make, or if you want to get my own, that you should check the very hash if it's equal to whatever Flutterwave will give you is the secret code. You understand? So there's so much you can do right now. These are different type of webhooks they can send to you, failed payments, and you can work with this to know exactly how to extract information. All right. So I'm sure this has been a beautiful lesson for you, right? If you have any questions at all, comment down below. All right. If you want to view or clone any of the apps that are built today, this entire application, just to play around and test it, make sure you subscribe to my Patron. Make sure you subscribe to YouTube. Like this video, comment down below, and I'll help you out with any of your suggestions or questions that you have. My number is also down below too. All right. Thank you so much. And you can check any of the other videos on your screen to watch more and learn more from me, right? Your favorite flutterflow expert.